Welcome to the Bushido Gang. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's AttackonSamurott, bringing you all the second part of my final review for the Pokemon Sword and Shield OU metagame. Now, again, I know I'm late. I know Scarlet and Violet's already out. I know the metagame is going on right now for Scarlet and Violet. It just started today as I'm recording this, so today is actually the first day of the ladder. But I wanted to finish I wanted to finish the second part of this video last night, but I got home from work and I was already tired. I got home like around 11 and I was just like, yeah, you know what, I'm not gonna record. Like, I was gonna eat, then I ended up sleeping on the couch, and then I woke up at 1 and then went back to sleep again. So yeah, I was not about to record the second part, but here I am now. 24 hours later, pretty much. So yeah, I'm gonna try and finish this last part, and then I'm gonna dive right into the Scarlet and Violet stuff because I have a lot to talk about with that. But yeah, like I said from the last part, I'm pretty much gonna be wrapping up my thoughts on the metas, or on the meta in general, and even like touch a little bit on the other metas I played too, and whatnot. Just give my gratitude for Gen 8 and what it did for me. So before we get started, please make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, the Bushido Gang, and subscribe for some more content on the channel. And yeah, so I wanted to mention one more thing. I wanted to mention one thing that I forgot to talk about with Spectrier, but one of the counters that it did have at the time, well, it wasn't really a counter, more like a check. It was Blissey. A lot of Blissies ran Shadow Ball when Spectrier was around. Just because, normally they couldn't really cover for it anyway. But with Shadow Ball, you could at least, chip it or potentially try and break its sub. But, a lot of Spectriers started to become a lot bulkier, and then some started to run Dark Pulse as well. So that, so Blissey checking it kind of didn't really last that long. So yeah, that was not a great check. But again, I'm just letting you know that that's what that Mon did at one point. Yeah. Next we have, so now we're going to move on to the other stuff, the actual stuff. So here we got part 2. So part 2, we got Urshifu Dark. So this is where, in the second part of the Crown Tundra, this is where the meta started to really, develop a little bit better. Especially once all the broken stuff were removed. So again, Zygarde being removed, Karen Black, Spectrier, Genesect, Pheromosa, all those busted Mons got removed. And yeah, so the meta started to really become more defensively oriented. You started to see more balanced teams. You started to see a mix of offensive teams as well, and hyper offense teams as well. But Stall wasn't really around like that. It was still around, but it was very, very it dropped a significant amount. I'll say that. Compared to what it was during the Olive Armor metagame. So, Urshifu Dark Shifu, this Mon was getting banned. This Mon was getting banned once, the other guys went away. I might be wrong, but I think Urshifu went first before Spectrier, but you guys can let me know that in the comments. But yeah, so Dark Fu was too much for the metagame, even with stuff like Tapu Fini, Lele, and even, Clef still being around and whatnot. It was still a problem, so the Mon got banned. Now, why did Urshifu get banned? Well, again, as I stated a long time ago, when I did my video talking about this Mon, when it was getting banned, the Mon has no checks to anything, or really has no checks. And also another thing to add on is that you could really this Mon was very destructive when you paired with Future Sight. So when you had stuff like Slow King with Sight, or even Galar King with Sight, and you just pressured the fairies, then Urshifu just smashes everything, because Future Sight into Wicked Blow is basically a 2 KO on a lot of the fairies. Like Fini would get 2 KO'd, Clef would get 2-shotted. It was crazy. It was crazy, honestly. But yeah, the Mon really had no checks. So that's kind of why it had to go. Again, Choice Band was its most dominant set. And it was for a good reason. So yeah, again, you could pair this thing with not electric terrain, with psychic terrain, with Sight from Lele. and again, it would just smash like all of its checks. So again, like Clef would get smashed by Sight plus by Future Sight boosted Psychic Terrain or Psychic Surge boosted Future Sight into Wicked Blow. And again, Feeny obviously would change it, but still the Sight would still do a decent amount of damage to it, and you would still be able to just chunk that Mon. So yeah, Future Sight plus this thing was stupid as hell, and that's why this had to go. Then we have Galar King. So Galar King went through a lot of phases. AV was its most popular set. So AV was very customizable. You can make it really however you wanted to. It did have that new move in Eerie spell, which gave it, right here, which basically removed PP from the opponent. So you would basically like have like another way of lowering your opponent's power points and just like really pressuring them. And honestly, this move didn't really get seen that much. Honestly, like Future Sight was seen more than Eerie spell. But it's not like it was a bad move. It's just that Sight just added a lot more utility compared to Eerie spell. Like technically, this could work paired with Corviknight or any pressure mon, but again, Sight was just overall better and just added a lot more utility. So sometimes you'd see again like Future Sight, Earthquake, Flamethrower, and then Sludge Bomb, or you would see Scald sometimes on this thing to cover for its checks and also potentially like get some burns on things. But yeah, Flamethrower was good because it covered for Melm and covered for Ferrothorn as well, and also covered for other steel types too. Sludge Bomb was perfect on this thing because you had a way to cover for the fairies, and also you had the chance to poison switch-ins as well. So again, poisoning stuff like Lando, poisoning stuff like Garchomp, even catching those mons with the Sludge Bomb was really nice. There were some Slow Kings that there were some Galar Kings that even ran Ice Beam too to cover for Lando. Since a lot of Landos, again, I'm going to talk about it very soon, but Lando was pretty much like max Spadef throughout the whole generation. The remainder of Crown Tundra, it pretty much ran mainly Spadef. You didn't really see too many other sets outside of like maybe an offensive Rock Lead set, but that was like very, very rare. And Scarf was non-existent, honestly. Like I really don't remember seeing Choice Scarf Lando like at all throughout the meta. So it pretty much was the defensive set that was basically the main Lando set that everyone was using. But again, I'm going to talk about Lando once I get there. But yeah, AV King was pretty much the mon that you would see a lot. Again, it covered for a lot of things, and it just took hits very well, honestly. But yeah, and its typing isn't bad, making it a fighting resist, so it wasn't terrible, actually. It wasn't a terrible fighting resist. But again, like, it was mostly just meant to be a soaker to take on special hits from things. So again, taking a hit from Tapu Koko, or from Dragapult's Draco Meteor, or even from a Shadow Ball from it. But yeah, it was mainly just to soak up hits, and then just be able to pressure things back with Future Sight on the switch in. So like catching the Dark type and then going into your fighter and then just covering with that, or going into your fairy, same thing. But yeah, let me have Feeny. So Feeny was amazing this generation. Like Feeny had a major come up in Gen 8. Like this mon being like offensive was so cool. It was so cool. Like running Choice Scarf with this thing was honestly one of the coolest things that Feeny could have done in this generation. Like for it to cover as a Dragapult check, and also cover as a water check still, or not water check, but also like a fire check as well. And even like provide utility with Trick. This thing was very good. This thing was very good offensively. Now you did have your utility sets with Defog and whatnot. You had the Taunt Calm Mind stuff going on with it as well. But I really think that Choice Scarf was one of its best sets. Looking back at it, like it was so good at potentially sweeping things and also just covering for a lot of other things as well. So it was a solid mon. It was a very solid mon. So this mon like did very well for this generation. Again, being able to cover for things like Weavile and other dark types, and even like cover for the dark types and fighters was very nice on this thing. And again, just outspeeding them too, because you would never expect this to be Choice Scarf. If you if you played this in Gen 7, you would catch everything off guard. Everything would be caught off guard if you ran this in Gen 7. But yeah, this thing was very good. Very, very good mon. And yeah, there's really not much else to say about Tapu Fini. Again, like I said, it was a good revenge killer, and it was a good utility mon overall with defog and all that stuff. But yeah, then we had Tapu Lele. Now Lele didn't really change much, honestly. Throughout this generation, it pretty much stayed the same, like how it was in Gen 7. Obviously, with the nerf to it, with Psychic Surge being 1.3 instead of 1.5, it did weaken it significantly. But the mon still put in work. The mon was still putting in work. Choice Scarf, Choice Specs, that's it. That was really it. Now there were some occasional niche stuff like Calm Mind, and like apparently there was like an AV set going around at one point, but it wasn't like a common thing, but it was just more like niche. But Choice Scarf and Choice Specs was really all you needed for Lele, and it would just do the work you need, or it would do the work that you needed to do. So again, like a lot of the sets ran, or a lot of players ran like Psychic plus Future Sight, and then would put Focus Blast plus Moon Blast. So you have the blast hit Heatran and hit like other dark types as well, or hit like other steel types as well. Again, hitting Melm too. Moon Blast again covered for everything, and it hit very hard off its specs, or off specs, and yeah. And again, Choice Scarf was good for revenge killing things as well, and pretty much being a late game cleaner too. So again, Lele was pretty solid. There really wasn't much else to say about the mon. And pretty much like all of his checks were the same. There actually no wait, hold on. Actually, Lele did run some weird things at one point, just because Corviknight was one of its better checks. But sometimes Lele did run Thunderbolt or Thunder just to cover for Corviknight. So there's that. So there's your little tidbit about Lele running other things besides Moonblast and Psychic. But yeah, it did occasionally run Thunder to cover for Corviknight. But besides that though, it hit everything very hard with Psychic or Future Sight into Psychic. Or I mean Future Sight to support the fighter or dark type. Or Fairy, I mean. So yeah. Again, very solid mon. Not much else to really say about it. And that pretty much covers it. Then we have Coco. So Coco didn't really change that much either, compared to Gen 7. I mean, obviously losing HP, losing hidden power, same thing with Lele, kind of like changed it a little bit, because now Coco can't really hit Lando with HP, or Coco can hit Lando or Garchomp with HP Ice. But Dazzling Gleam still did decent chip, and also you did have Toxic potentially on the Lando or on the Chomp to cover for it. So Dazzling Gleam still did damage, but again, like obviously the damage is significantly less, especially against Lando, which Lando was more Spadef this generation anyway. But still, the mon did what it needed to do. Was still able to Volt Switch and was still able to run the Volt Turn Core, get momentum on stuff as well. And with Boots, it made this mon pretty much like, unstoppable, I'd almost want to say, because you could come in and not have to deal with Hazard Chip. So you would always get a free turn, always get a free U-turn on the ground, always get a free Volt Switch on whatever you can, and then just get momentum. So it was a very good momentum getting mon. It did have Defog too. Defog wasn't too bad, but again, pretty much like the common set was like Thunderbolt, Roost, and then Volt Turn, and that was it. Or again like Dazzle over Thunderbolt or whatever. Or Dazzle over Roost sometimes. So yeah. Again, the mon didn't really change too much. It was still a good utility mon. On Hyper Offense, this thing, was a pretty good screen setter, but I don't remember seeing it too much on screens, because obviously there was a better screen setter in Grimmsnarl. But Grimmsnarl can't do it on dark types, so you had Coco as another alternative. But yeah. The mon pretty much, did its thing. That's all I can really say. Again, it was a good pivot. It was a very good pivot for the generation. And again, like coming off its electric terrain or its electric surge, yeah, it is significantly weaker than it was last gen, but it still did damage. Again, same thing, kind of the same story with Lele, but obviously Lele hits way more than what Coco could hit. So yeah. Then we have Lando. So Now we're talking about Lando. So Lando did one thing did one set very well, and it was the Spadef set. This set covered for everything. It covered for the physical attackers to some extent, and even covered, and again, was a very good Spadef wall or Spadef check. So it could take on Specs Dragapult to some extent. Could take on hits from other mons as well. Heatran, taking the Magma Storm from it. Blast is kind of an iffy one, but definitely like the weaker ghosts like Dragapult was a pretty notable one, and yeah, pretty much you could revenge him with Earthquake. You had U-turn for the pivoting. You had knockoff. You had toxic, defog. So all those utility options. Occasionally, some ran rocks. But yeah, Lando was kind of having like a 4 move slot syndrome a little bit. With having to drop either not U-turn. It couldn't really drop U-turn, but it would have to drop either toxic or rocks for one of its coverage options. So there's that. Toxic was really good because again it covered for opposing Lando and it covered for other switch-ins as well. So there was that. And again, knockoff was good for utility, removing items, especially boots. And U-turn was just good for momentum gaining. So that move would like almost never be gone. But yeah, again, Lando wasn't like, again, you could run rocks on it, but it wasn't really that ideal because you wanted to do a lot more things, or you wanted to be around for a little bit longer and, you know, be a good pivot and be a good defensive check for things. But yeah. Not much else to really say about Lando. Again, Lando pretty much does what Lando does. Again, like I said, the offensive set wasn't really that great. Didn't really get that much attention. The SPDEF set was just better. Occasionally, there were some sets like bulk up that were around for a little bit at one point. But again, that was like somewhere. It was like somewhere like in the mid section of Crown Tundra. That's where you started to see like some bulk up Landos. But yeah, that didn't really last too long, and then just kind of went back to being defensive. So yeah. Again, there were a lot of checks to Lando. You have Ice Beam to cover for it. So again, like I mentioned before, Slow King or Galar King, even like pretty much like all the Slow family, they would run Ice Beam to cover for Lando. And that was pretty much that. Rillaboom hit it pretty hard with Grassy Glide or even a Wood Hammer on the switch in if you can catch it. And yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much that. Zapdos covered for it fairly well with Hurricane. Hurricane would do a pretty good chunk to it, but obviously, like I said, with Lando being more SPDEF, it can take a Hurricane and it can punish it with Toxic, or it can knock it off. But Toxic is way better because then you could actually check them on a little bit better. But yeah. So again, it was a good electric check, especially with Zero Aura being like the common one or the common electric type. But still, like I had mentioned before, if this mon gets Toxic, then Zero Aura can technically still cover it with Knockoff. Because again, Knockoff still does a lot, especially with Rocks down too. And especially with this thing not being defensive like it was in the past, with it being more on the SPDEF side, Knockoff would do a lot more damage. So when you have Toxic paired with Rocks down, you're doing like 40% with Knockoff. Like altogether. So it's still a good chip. It's definitely a good chip. And again, that can just add on more and more. So again, it was a solid mon. And yeah. Next we have part 3. Wow. Didn't mean to voice crack there. I'm actually just gonna like have this locked in. I don't know why I didn't loop. I'll just have this one looped. I don't know why it didn't loop the previous one. Anyways, we have Crown Tundra Part 3. So Crown Tundra Part 3. We have Urshifu Water, Weavile, Blast, the snow covering, and then we have Blaziken. So now we're pretty much going into what the main meta is, or what the current meta is. So the current meta at the moment, or I guess now that the meta's over, and now we're moving on to Gen 9. This is pretty much like where Gen 8 pretty much ends. So Urshifu Water is now the dominant Urshifu, or is the only Urshifu. Urshifu has had an interesting history. The water one anyway. You can run pads on it to cover for Zapdos that we don't have to get paralyzed by it. You do the same thing against like Ferrothorn and other like Rocky Helmet mons that were common. So again, Garchomp, Pharaoh, even like Helmet, Pex, and all those things. Helmet, Clef to some extent. Helmet, Tangrowth, all those mons. So you could at least like pivot around them, get chip on them and whatnot, not have to deal with taking recoil damage. Choice Band was pretty good. Choice Band wasn't too bad on this thing. Choice Scarf was pretty good as well for being a revenge killer. Yeah, Choice Band was pretty solid. I'd probably say Choice Band was its most popular set. Surging Strikes really covered for a lot. And again, being a move that crits every time is just great in general. CC covered for a lot too. U-turn was good for pivoting, and Jet was good for cleaning things up in late game scenarios. So again, Jet for cleaning up, the weakened stuff like Weavile, Blacephalon, Blaziken, like all those weak mons getting chipped and whatnot. So it was good. It's very solid at that. Now this mon did have some checks. Dragonite, I probably say was one of its better checks because not a lot of her Shifus ran Ice Punch. So having, that to cover for it was pretty nice. So, and Dragonite's an interesting one too because Dragonite came up a lot in this generation with it getting boots. Again, a lot of the flyers really got a lot out of boots. Volcarona is another good example. But then not having to worry about getting chipped by rocks or spikes. Definitely benefited that mon incredibly well. So that's another thing to note about that. But yeah, going back to Urshifu though, again, Choice Band, Choice Scarf, and the pad set were one of its best sets, and it definitely came up a lot in this generation too. So again, it was solid, covered for a lot. CC hit everything fairly well, and Surging Strikes covered for a lot as well, breaking sashes and all that and all those things, and again, just being a solid late game cleaner. Or just a solid wall breaker, I mean. So yeah, again, it threatened out a lot of things. And defensively, it covered for a decent chunk as well. Again, covering for Heatran, covering for yeah, Heatran's one of the bigger ones, but also the fires as well, like Volcarona to some extent. Volcanion kind of walled it though. It covered Weavile very well though. So that was another thing to really note. And Weavile got very popular as well, which again I am going to be talking about very soon. Actually, I will be talking about right now, basically. But yeah, for Revenge Killers though, and also walls, Buzzwole was a very good check to it. That mon walled it completely. Even with it running pads, it could still cover for it fairly well. Kartana was another one that was great at revenge killing it. So you had Leaf Blade to cover for that. Corviknight to some extent it was okay, but it wasn't a dominant mon. Honestly, I'd almost argue that Corviknight still kind of lost to Urshifu, but I think you still could have muscled. I think this mon still was able to muscle through Urshifu, to some extent. So there's that. What else am I missing? Defensive Mew, at least actually this one's a little different. I'll talk about that one. Bro was a good check, and so was Slowking. U-turn did 40 with Choice Band. I think a little less than 40, but it stung a little bit, but Bro didn't really care. Bro did not care that much. Slowking obviously wasn't a good check. Feeny was a great check to this thing. Great check. Occasionally there would be some Urshifus that run Thunder Punch, but again they weren't super common. But Feeny was a great check to it. Scarf Layla would beat it. If it's not Scarf its own or on its own, then and Layla would beat it 100%. Coco as well, but Coco's a little bit of a weird one just because, again, if you're running a Choice Scarf set, then you beat this thing. But if you're not Choice Scarf, then Coco can easily just pressure you out and force you to switch into your ground or your grass type. So yeah. But obviously, Lando would be the switching more than once, more than likely. But then you have to deal with Dazzling, but that's just a whole nother thing. But yeah. Solid mon. Weavile. So, Weavile is a funny mon. Weavile is a funny mon, right? I remember when Crown Tundra first started. I want to say somewhere around March. No. Maybe it was either February or March of 2021. Because that was when Crown Tundra was pretty much at its I want to say at its peak. I remember using Weavile. Now, around that time, Spectre was still around, and I was already I was talking with my boy Bluebird, if you guys remember him. I was talking with him, talking with my boy Bluebird, and I think I was also talking with Eric and with Galade at the time that Weavile is going to be pretty busted. Weavile's a busted mon. The reason why this mon was so dominant in this generation was because, again, Dark and Ice is just good. It's just really good. And the fact this mon got triple axle too just made it even better. So with it having a move that just adds on, or that just doubles in power, like for every successful hit, it's a solid move. It's a very solid move. Like the amount of times you wanted to kill a Clef with Crash and hope you get the flinch, you didn't have to do that. All you had to do was just land all three and you could actually kill Clef. So there's that. Obviously there were some harder checks to weave out, like Buzzwole, for example. That was a very hard check to it. I already mentioned Urshifu. Yeah, I already mentioned Urshifu. Urshifu was a great check to it as well. And even like Melm was a hard check to that thing. Yeah, you get knocked off by it, but you still die anyway. Obviously, you don't want to switch into it. You don't want to switch Melm into a knockoff. That's a terrible idea. But what I'm saying is that this Mon would have to trade with Melm. So you would always force a trade with that Mon. Mana Zone technically could check it as well. Low Kick did some damage, but Zone could just body press it and kill it. Cart Revenge kills it easily. And again, if you're not running Triple Axle, then Clef can technically still cover for it. Granny had to deal with not getting flinched, but again, that's a whole nother thing. Blacephalon can Revenge kill it, obviously. And Rillaboom, I believe, no, actually Ice Shard still goes first, never mind. Bro would run Cobra to cover for Weavile occasionally. So if you fight a Bro with Cobra, then you get body press and then Weavile dies. so there's that. Volcarona, or not Volcarona, Volcanion was kind of a check to it, but not really. At least you're taking ice coverage. It wouldn't take a knockoff, but it could take an ice move. Zeraora was out without speed and kill it, but obviously you have to be afraid of, +2 Ice Shard. So yeah, the Mon could pressure things. Feeny was a great check. Hardwalled this thing. Easily hardwalled this thing. But yeah, besides that though, or outside that though, Weavile was a great Mon this generation. It came up a lot. Boots SD was one of its better sets. I did like Choice Band at one point. Choice Band was really fun. That was a very fun move to use with it. And again, like SD Boots was pretty much like its most dominant set. And again, for a good reason. This Mon could come in and not have to deal with Hazard Chip. And that's what made it so good. Like, again, a lot of these offensive Mons got so good because of Boots. Like, Boots is really what made these Mons stand out way more than they needed to. Like, they were already good, but Boots made them even better than they needed to be. So yeah, I mean, like, look at Zeraora. Like, Zeraora is a prime example. That Mon last gen, or in Gen 7, like, you would not see that thing. That Mon stayed in Yu-Gi for a reason. Because it would get chipped very heavily. And in terms of, like, coverage options, his coverage options actually weren't that bad at the time. But it's just the fact that it got pressured very easily by a lot of things. That it just couldn't stay in OU at that moment, or at the time. But obviously with the decreased power, with the decrease in power for this generation, Zeraora was able to make a name for itself. But still, and also with Boots added on to that as well, it just made it even more pronounced. But yeah, Boots kind of made this Mon even better than it already was. So yeah, Blacephalon. Okay, so Blacephalon. Blast, pretty much, I want to say, was a very dominant fire type. Once Crown Tundra dropped. Now, obviously, it didn't get much attention when Spectre was around. But once Spectre left, Blast just went off. Like, Specs was going crazy, Choice Scarf was going crazy. But Choice Scarf was pretty much like its most dominant set. Shadow Ball hits everything. And also, Blast outsped Lele if it's Scarfed, and without speed, Drag Pult as well, since no one runs Scarf Pult. Unless you're very crazy, but again, the main thing is that no one runs Scarf Pult at this point in the metagame. So Blast was good in covering for it. Okay, I mean, of course you'd have to fear like DD sets on offensive teams, or on hyper offensive teams. But besides that, though, Blast kind of just smashed through everything with Shadow Ball. Again, like, Ghost types really just came up tremendously in this generation. Like, it's actually kind of crazy. Like, I'm actually kind of afraid for the future of Ghost types, because like, well, actually no, I'm more afraid of the future for Dark types, really, because like, it seems like Game Freak has been making more and more defensive Dark types to combat for the offensive Ghost types. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't think it really works. Like, I think I think it would work way better if they just brought back Pursuit. But you know, that's just my take on it. That's just my take on it. You know, my opinion. But my opinion don't really matter like that. But you know, Pursuit would be nice to have back because I would actually like calm down all these ghost types that are just doing way too much. But again, that's just my take on it. Because yeah, like you can't punish ghost types anymore. Like the only way you can punish ghost types is to have either a faster ghost or to have priority, and that's it. Like if you have Shadow Sneak or you have Sucker Punch to cover for it, then you're good to go. If you're not a dark type that can't do that, then you just get beat by the ghost type. T-Tar is a prime example. T-Tar is a prime example. I hate using that mod as an example, but it really is like. T-Tar really, it's actually very sad, but T-Tar just, it's not a ghost check anymore. Like, I know I'm very wild for saying that, but it's just not a ghost check anymore. Mandibuzz, like I mentioned earlier in the video, or like I mentioned in the first part, it actually was a ghost check since it has recovery, and it can actually like, live hits from the ghost types. But again, if you're not a dark type that has priority or recovery, then you lose to the ghost type, unfortunately. So yeah, again, that's just how I see it. I could be completely wrong, but yeah, that's just how I see it. Anyways, Pacificlon, like I said, it was good as a Scarf Bond and also as a Specs Bond. There were ways of killing it off, obviously. Grassy Goliath Rillaboom killed it with Choice Band. Choice Band Rillaboom killed it. Technically, you could not... I was going to say that you could technically two-shot it with Weavile to some extent. Urshifu obviously beat it with Jet. Bisharp Sucker Punching it. But even though Bisharp wasn't like super common anyway. Or isn't really that common anyway. And Rillaboom. Urshifu with knocking it or with jetting it. If it's not Scarf, then Zero Aura can just knock it. And same thing with Cart. Well, Cart can just kill it with knockoff anyway since it's Scarf and faster. Heatran can kind of play the game around it. You know, playing the... If you're going to Flamethrower, go for Shadow Ball. You know, kind of an option. Dragonite technically could cover for it too, but like not super well. Blissey obviously was a great check, but obviously if you get tricked, then you lose to it. And again, Dragapult was another example. Again, like DD or Sucker Punch set can deal with it, or a DD set can deal with it. Or again, if it's not Scarf, then you beat it with Shadow Ball. So that's how it goes. And yeah. Feeny also covered for it, but again, if this mon gets like if this mon gets one boost, actually if it gets two boosts, then it can two-shot it. But with one, Feeny can potentially live it and then kill it back. But that would be on a more defensive set. If it's an offensive set, then Shadow Ball would two-shot it. So yeah. Peck's also covered for it too. On both on the special side, it could take a hit from both Shadow Ball or from Flamethrower if it's not boosted already. And they could just knock it and kill it or just scald it. And yeah, you could also Future Sight into it. If you catch it on Future Sight, then you can kill it off as well. And yeah, that was Blast for you. I do remember that I think this mon ran boots at one point. But I might be tripping about that. But I feel like it ran boots at one point. Let's see. Yeah, again, Specs, Scarf. Yeah, nothing about that. Okay, so whatever. Yeah, this mon was a nuke, man. It's a nuke in general. But I definitely would say Choice Scarf was more popular than Choice Specs. Yeah. We have Ninetales. So Ninetales, what did Ninetales do? Ninetales added a lot of things for hyper offense teams. With it getting, with it having Veil, it basically made this one like unbeatable, really. Because it added the hail support for the Slush Rush users, and the Slush Rush user that came out of this generation that really shined was Arctozolt. So Arctozolt, pretty much being under that Veil and being with the Slush Rush, or having Slush Rush, it made this thing very powerful. Like again, it was a good mix attacker. So having Bolt Beak to cover for the waters, and again, electric and ice coverage is just a godsend. It's just so good. It's just such good coverage. Like you hit everything you need to hit. So Bolt Beak hits everything. You have ice coverage hit everything, and yeah, again, the mix set was pretty good. You can run Blizzard with it plus Bolt Beak, and then you have Freeze Dry and whatnot. Or you can make it more on the mix side with like Crash, Bolt Beak, Blizzard, or whatever. Low kick as well to cover for the steals. But yeah, that pretty much covered for Archazult. Now this mon did have a couple items. You could run Life Orb or you could run Boots on it. I think Life Orb was more common. I believe that was more common. But yeah, it could do that and basically, you know, be able to hit everything very hard. But again, a bolt beak boosted on the switching, or you know, just, you know, since you're faster anyway, just cover for it a lot better anyway. But yeah. Obviously, the ways to combat Archazult came from priority and also from having your other weather up. So again, if you had like rain or if you had sun up, then Archazult, you know, would kind of fall down to it, or kind of fall off from it. But I'd probably say that hail was the more. Yeah, I'd probably say hail was more common than sand or even sun or rain. Well, no, it was definitely more common than hail at one point. Rain was around, but like it wasn't, like I already mentioned before, it wasn't super prevalent. But again, it wasn't bad. It was good, but again, it just wasn't like, you know, the most common weather, really. But hail was very good for this generation. Like a lot of ice types came up in this generation, really. And again, Archazult was kind of the main, was kind of the pioneer for it. But yeah, this one in terms of checks, obviously there's, you know, stuff like Heatran was actually a decent check to it, but there were some Archazults that could run Stomping Tantrum to deal with it as well. Melm covered that thing very well. Again, this Mon cannot break it, like, at all. Like, you cannot break Melm with this Mon. So Melm will destroy it all the time. It's always a 1v1. Rillaboom could two-shot it with, you know, Glide. Victini, no, not really. Volcanion, no. What else? Definitely not Feeny. Also, another thing to note is that with Slush Rush, this Mon goes up to, again, with it being like with it being like, you know, let's say naive or whatever, with it being naive, when you double in power, it's going to go up to 518, and there are a lot of Scarf Mons that are going to be faster than this thing, so Scarfers will outspeed this Mon, and they can revenge kill it. So that's another thing to really note about Archazult. So this Mon is not a, what's the word? I mean, it was a win con to some extent, but obviously if you have something faster than it, then it will just drop to it regardless. But yeah. Technically, Ferrothorn was a check to it too, but that one's a little iffy because Blizzard can still do a decent chunk anyway. And Buzzwole is also kind of an iffy one too, because sometimes, again, Blizzard would be more likely to have, or likely for it to run. But yeah, Blast would easily cook this thing up, so Flamethrower would drop it, or Fire Blast or whatnot. And again, Cart could outspeed it and kill it with the Smart Strike. If the Veil's not up. If Veil's up, then Archazult can live most of these hits anyway, except for Melm. Melm will destroy it anyway, even through screens. So yeah. Oh yeah, another thing is Galar King. Galar King wasn't too bad. I mean, obviously you had to deal with Bolt Beak, but outside of Bolt Beak, Galar King could technically cover for it fairly well too. And yeah, T-Tar, like I already mentioned before, if you have stand up, you could deal with it. But even still, that's still an iffy situation just because of Bolt Beak stuff, and that can still do a lot anyway on the switch in. But at least you remove the sand, or you can remove the hail at the like at the cost of taking all that damage, but honestly it's not really worth it like that. But yeah, Blaziken. Now this Mon went through an interesting time in Sword and Shield. Now I don't know. Now I made this Mon last, honestly, because it was kind of difficult to really put it last because this Mon really went through a weird phase in Sword and Shield. At first when the Mon dropped, everyone was so hyped for it because everyone was so hyped because Blaziken, for the first time ever, would actually be allowed in OU and would be allowed to be played. You could actually use this Mon. Because for the longest time, Blaziken was always banned. Since I'm pretty sure since Gen 5. Since Gen 5, the Mon's been banned. It hasn't been allowed to be used on the OU ladder. But now this Mon actually, for the first time, had usage on the OU ladder and didn't get banned. So this Mon, like I said, it was good. it was pretty good. This mon ran a lot of different things. SD Life Orb was its more dominant set. Since you just, set up an SD and then you just smash everything. Obviously, there are ways to kill it off and, Grassy Glide and whatnot, but I'm going to get there soon. But yeah, if you're running this thing on hyper offense with screens, and Blaziken can at least live like 1 or 2 hits and then still get off like a ton of damage or whatever it can. But yeah, like the main thing this mon ran a lot was like Blitz, Knock, and Thunder Punch. Or you can run EQ to cover for Pex a little bit more, and you still hit Dragon Ball anyway. But like Blitz, I think pretty much it was Blitz Knockoff or Blitz Thunder Punch and Quake or whatnot. But yeah, they pretty much like cover for everything. Now Knockoff, like I said, it covers for a lot more than what Earthquake can, since you can hit Dragon Ball and you also can remove items as well. But yeah, Blitz was pretty much free. It hit everything very, very hard. And again, not many mons can really take this thing on anyway after +2. So there's that. And again, I mentioned Thunder Punch and Knockoff because again, like I already mentioned, Knockoff does cover for Pulp, but it also covers for stuff like the Bros as well. Again, covering for Slow King, covering for Slow Bro as well, Slow King or regular Slow King. So it'll cover for all those. And Thunder Punch is really good since again it hit Pex, and also you could also hit Torn Knot to take all that recoil damage from like Helmet and whatnot. So there's that too. And you can also run CC too. You can run Blitz CC and Thunder Punch as well. So you have that stab. So again, you can just CC through everything. And yeah, essentially just knock out every mon. So it was very solid. Now there were some other unique options with this thing too. Some people ran pretty much like the SD set was the only thing it ran. But a lot of people would customize the item. So some people go lefty, some people would go air balloon. I think there might have been some other weird options, but I know air balloon was like one of the weirder ones, just because you had basically a ground immunity, right off bat, and being a sweeper at the same time. But yeah, it's basically the same set here. So yeah, SD set. This is for Gen 7. The fuck? Okay, let's go to for Nat Dex for OU. Yeah, again, you run this set, even pads too. So you have pads going on there as well. I didn't really see Choice Band, honestly, but I saw these two more than I saw Choice Band. But yeah, again, Blaziken was solid. But again, it's really funny. It's just hilarious to me how people kind of like in the beginning, the mon kind of didn't really get a whole lot of attention until a lot of other mons got banned. Like once Zygarde got banned, and once the other broken shits got banned, then Blaziken started to get like a lot better, and just became a more dominant threat to the meta. But obviously it didn't last super long because you had other revenge killers that could deal with it. You also had to factor in that this mon took a lot of recoil from things. So again, taking all that recoil from Blaziken, taking all that recoil from what's it called? From Garchomp, taking all the recoil from Ferrothorn and whatnot. And potentially not even like killing most things. So you could eventually or not killing most things, but you get what I'm saying. Like the mon would get worn down very quickly and could just get revenge killed by other things like priority from Rillaboom, Weavile, or even from like DD Pult or from Ice Shard from Weavile or something like that. But yeah, the mon was just kind of a running nuke, and it could get taken down pretty easily. If you have the resources for it. If you don't, then the mon will just kind of blow through teams. But yeah, it was fun. It was pretty fun. I wish I used this thing more, honestly. But I never really considered Blaziken that much when I was playing for myself. But it was fun. It was a very fun mon. I kind of regret not using it more. But maybe if this mon comes back, I'll consider using Blaziken more. But it was fun, though. Alright, so that covers for part 3 of Crown Tundra. Next, we have the finale. So here's the finale. There's one mon I forgot to add. I don't think I actually put it in here. I might just put it in the honorable mentions. I didn't put that mon in here. Let me put that mon in here real quick. You guys are going to know what the mon is anyway, but I don't care. I'm going to put this mon in here anyway, because it was also an honorable mention. Where is it at? There you are. Alright, so I'll add that there. And I'll talk about all of them individually, but I'm going to talk about the finale. So, card, I already mentioned it a lot, but this mon was pretty good. Again, good Scarf mon. There were some other sets it could run, like pads, so that way it could circumvent the Rocky Helmet mons. So again, what's it called? Helmet Clef, Helmet Corv, Ferrothorn, Garchomp, all of them. So being able to cover through them was really nice. Did I not put Heatran on here? I thought I put Heatran on here. Huh, weird. Oh, I skipped it, that's why. That's why. Oh, my bad. I didn't even notice. Okay, Melm stayed. This is really the final part. Okay, so Melm stayed. That's all you need to know. Melm stayed. I already mentioned how busted this thing was when it first dropped in home. But now with it, remaining in OU, this thing has solidified itself as one of the best tanks in OU. This thing was fucking awesome. AV went crazy. Choice Band went crazy. Occasionally you saw pads. Even like some E-Belt sets. You would also see like some defensive body pressing stuff. You would also see the Protect Toxic sets with the Bash plus EQ, just to cover for everything, and also like Toxic to hit the Helmet Mons. So again, covering for Buzzwole, covering for Garchomp, and whatnot. So it was good. And again, the fact that you get passive recovery with it just made it even better too. But yeah, this mod was solid as fuck. Such a good mod. Melm was such a fun mod, man. I'm gonna miss it, honestly. I really am. But this mod kept me wanting to maybe want to keep playing OU, honestly. Like, it was just that fun. It was a very fun mod. And I will miss it. I will miss it dearly. But yeah. When it came to checks to Melm, there were some good checks. Corviknight with Helmet's a good example. Ferrothorn's another example too. Buzzwole's a good example. Again, the Toxic set was one of the best ways to deal with it. So if you had Toxic for Buzzwole, then you can handle it and you could be able to pressure it a little bit better. What else? Heatran. So Heatran, I'm going to talk about it, but Heatran had an interesting history too. Sometimes it ran Flame Body to try to get burns on things. So again, getting a burn, trying to fish for a burn on Melm was a good example, or with Rillaboom. But again, I'm gonna get into Heatran as soon as I can. But I just want to mention that that's one of the reasons why Heatran ran a Flame Body, just cover for new stuff like that. But yeah, Heatran did cover for it potentially, or did cover for it if it's not AV. But even if it is AV, it would still take a lot. So there's that to mention. You do not switch in on this thing. Like, Melm does not switch in on Heatran at all. Unless you're trying to catch something, unless you're trying to like predict something, usually it's not worth going Melm on Heatran unless you know that they're going to do this one thing and you're certain about it. If you're certain, then you can make the call. If you're not certain, then don't do it. Then don't do it. But yeah, so Melm, again, like when it came to his checks, Bro was a good check to it. Very good check, actually. Scald, Burn, Suck, and there's that. But if you ran like a Choice Band set, you could still kind of get through it. But even still, like if you get burned, it's kind of some shit for you. So there's that. Pex walled it. If you're not running Thunder Punch, but a lot of them did run it to cover for Pex. So there's that. Again, Bolt Beam coverage. Victini technically did if you're not running EQ, but again, Melm has like a 4 move slot syndrome. So sometimes they would run EQ, sometimes they would run Superpower. It just kind of depended on the team itself. But yeah, there's that to mention. Again, Fire types did technically beat it anyway. So if it's not running EQ, then Victini beats it. Volcanion beats it. Volcarona can beat it. Yeah, Volcarona can beat it. I remember I did run Rock Slide on mine at one point when I was running AV, and being able to live a hit from Volcarona was funny. So I Rock Slided and killed it. So that was a fun time. Zapdos actually was a fairly good check too. Well, Zapdos is a weird one. Again, if you're running Protect Toxic, you could technically cover for that mon fairly well, but so you'd have to take a lot from Discharge or from Volt Switch to factor that in. Also, Hurricane will still do a decent chunk too if it's not running AV. So there's that too. And also you have to factor in, not getting paralyzed by it as well. But that's why, again, Melm ran pads to cover for it too. So yeah. The Tapus technically could deal with it. Feeny didn't really deal with it at all. unless you're running the trick set, then you have to just trade with it. But outside of that though, Melm technically beats Feeny. Coco gets bodied if it's an AV set. Without AV, I mean, Mel will take a lot anyway, but it could still kind of muscle through it and still be able to kill it off. Layla would get bodied if it's a tech set. AV still could body it too, and yeah, that's pretty much that. Yeah, that's pretty much that. Yeah, let me have Volcanion. So Volcanion had an interesting history too. This mon was an RU at one point, and then it rose up throughout the time in Crown Tundra. Now I don't know what really caused its rise, I don't really know what caused its rise, with RU into UU and then eventually into OU. I just know that this mon is just good on and off rain, and also it got very popular on this Hail team that I mentioned before, or on this Hail team that was made by this player known as Asuma. And he ran Volcanion a lot, and again, it was a good water immunity, and just covered for a lot on teams in general. With Boots, you made this thing pretty much able to take on a lot of things as well. Had a lot of support options with Defog too. Again, the water immunity is huge because this gives it a way to cover for rain teams as well. And again, CM Eruption in this thing in the rain hurts a lot. And you have the burn chance with it too. So Volcanion was a nasty, nasty mon. That mon was fun. That mon was very fun. Again, Boots was good, Specs was good, and I want to say you could run sub with it with lefties, just like how you could last gen. But I'm not 100% on that. But I do know that again, this thing was a great wall breaker. Occasionally you would see like Toxic on it too to cover for opposing switch-ins. But yeah, like pretty much water fire coverage is just great. It's so good. It's really the best of both worlds. It's the best of both worlds with this thing. Yeah, this one was a very powerful wall breaker. It's a shame that that only now it really started to get attention. Or I mean, I guess not really now. It started to get attention like 5 months ago, 5-6 months ago. So I think it might be a little bit longer than that. But yeah, this mon was good. It was good. Now obviously there were checks to it like Pex. Pex can wall it fairly well. I actually walled it on both ends. Obviously skull burns suck, so there's that to mention. But the fact Pex can just taunt it and not really has to like fear anything is also another worrisome thing. And also knockoff kind of hurts too, so that way I would take hazard chip too. So that's another thing to really note about it. Urshifu gets walled by it, obviously. Like, I mean, obviously you have CC, but if you CC, then you die. so there's that. Lele could hit it very hard. It's definitely the greatest, so Psychic can still do a chunk. He can still do a pretty good chunk to it. Coco can damage it, obviously. Feeny doesn't really do much to it. And occasionally, and sometimes Volcanion did run Sludge Bomb to cover for it too. So you had Sludge Bomb to cover for that. Galar King, that one kind of got bodied, kind of. But King, I think Galar King still covered for it fairly well anyway. So the slow twins, Slowbro and Slow King. Slowbro didn't really take on Volcanion compared to Slow King. Slow King actually covered for it a little bit better. So there's that. Let's see. I really want to say that some of the grasses covered it, but not really. Like Card can do damage to it, but it doesn't really kill it. It doesn't really kill it. Like it can damage it with Leaf Blade, but it doesn't exactly kill a Volcanion. So I'll say that. Lando got bodied, and a lot of Landos were slow. Like they were like some didn't even run speed investment. So Volcanion could outspeed it and just kill it with Skull. So that's another thing to note. It would force out the defensive variants of Lando. What else? I want to say Dragonite was a fairly decent check to it, at least the defensive set. But no, I think in general Dragonite was just a good check to it overall. Like it covered for it. Like Volcanion doesn't have ice coverage. Like it has no ice move here besides Haze, but that doesn't count. So when it came to hitting what's it called? Hitting when it came to hitting Dragonite, like There really weren't that many options. Unless you wanted to run Weather Ball with it, then you could actually get Dragonite. But besides that, though, really weren't too many options for Volcanion to hit dragons. So it really came down to getting burns on it. And I mean, the burn was still good, don't get me wrong. It was still good on it. But it's the fact that Dragonite can just, eat the hit and then be able to pretty much get back from that. So yeah. Blissey was also a check, but that one's kind of iffy too. No, actually, no. I think Blissey actually does count. I could cover for it, or covered for it fairly well. But yeah. Besides that, though, outside of that though, the mom was good. It was very solid. Dragonite. So Dragonite had a major come up in this generation. This mon, why does the beat keep switching up? I don't understand. I want it to be locked in, but it doesn't stay locked. Okay, so Dragonite, right? So Dragonite had an interesting history in this generation. I remember that it kind of shifted a lot. Like at one point, it was very defensive, and then it went to being offensive again. So you would see different variations on it. There were some defensive sets that ran Roost plus Defog. You saw like ice ground coverage with it too, so you could hit again Pex and also cover for Lando at the same time. What else? Yeah, hitting Pex and covering for Lando was pretty good with this thing. Again, the Defog set wasn't too bad on it. There were some other sets that were getting popular or that were getting some attention. Like I remember Choice Band being a thing at one point. It wasn't like a super known thing, but it was around at one point. But yeah, these were pretty much like the sets that this mon ran a lot. So again, the bulky DD set, and you had the offensive DD set with dual wing beat. This mon having flying coverage was a godsend. This thing actually getting like flying coverage was great. So now it could actually pressure grounds. It could pressure the things it's supposed to be pressuring, like not flying types, but like grass types and whatnot. So it could actually be threatening to them. But yeah, defensively, Dragonite added a lot to it, especially when you factor in that this mon had boots. So this mon could always come in at full, or be at full, and not to take rock damage. So, and that was very good paired with multi-skill. So it could just take hits and not really... it could just take the hit and not have to worry about, hazard chips. So it was just solid at that. Or, it was very bulky enough to deal with that. And also just set up as well. So you could just keep setting up with this thing and just start applying pressure. So... I say that in terms of mons that can deal with it. There's obviously stuff like Weavile. You do have Mammal Swine. You do have stuff like Garchomp too. If you can Scale Shot before DDs, then you could actually pressure it. And if it's not running Ice Punch, then you also deal with it too. If it's not running Ice or Dragon coverage, then you can deal with it. And Dragonite didn't really run Dragon coverage like that, to be fair. So it pretty much ran Ice Quake or Flying Quake. And that was pretty much all you needed on this mon. So again, if it's not running Ice Punch, then Garchomp has decent odds in dealing with it. And also you still would get chip on it anyway. But yeah, you could potentially Scale Shot it and then kill it off. If you're running again the offensive Chomp set. So there's that. Corviknight actually dealt with it fairly well. That's like that's kind of like. That's a little bit of an iffy one, but Corviknight technically beats it. Technically, obviously you have to deal with the chip damage, or you have to deal with chip from Helmet and Brave Bird chip. But to some degree, Dragonite could set up on it, and it could 1v1 it. It would take a long time, but it is possible. It is possible. So that's something to mention. But yeah, what else covered for it? Let's see. Obviously, Hail deals with it. So if you have, your Hail up, then you beat Dragonite, pretty much. Yeah, you pretty much beat Dragonite anyway. What else? Rillaboom, actually, Dragonite was a pretty good check to Rillaboom. Yeah, Dragonite was a pretty good check to Rillaboom. You pretty much just set up on it, and you just win. So that was a very easy setup for it. Slowbro beats it. You have Press plus Ice Beam, so you can technically deal with it. If it's not running that, then Dragonite could potentially handle it anyway. But there is factoring in Scald plus Future Sight stuff, so there's that too. And if Dragonite does get burned, then it's gonna have a much harder time in covering for it. It's possible. It's still possible, but it's just gonna take a lot longer. Especially if it's Sight plus Skull, then you're gonna have a pretty rough time. King, Dragonite beats that. Feeny can check it to some extent. Coco can check it before it sets up, but if it sets up, it's over. Lele is same thing. Yeah, same thing. But the thing with Dragonite is that it has to actually land Dueling Beat. If it lands it, then it can deal with it. But if it misses, then Lele just wins. So yeah, there's that. Torn wasn't really an issue for Dragonite, honestly. Pex, if it's not running Quake, then you haze it and you just wall it forever. You can also taunt it too, knock it, do whatever you want. But if it's running Quake, then it's basically dead. T-Tar, that's on a check. Or Shifu, if it's not running Ice Punch, then the Dragonite beats it. But if it is running Ice Punch, then or Shifu can cover it. If the multi-skill's already broken. So that's another thing to note about that. Victini, it depends with that one, but usually Dragonite can 1v1 that. So that's there to mention, or that's to mention. Volcanion, I already mentioned that Dragonite can beat that in a 1v1 scenario. Because again, Volcanion doesn't have ice coverage, so it has much better odds in handling it. Volcarona gets bodied by Dragonite. Weavile beats up Dragonite. Zapdos is a weird one. If you're running Ice Punch, you can deal with it. If you're not running Ice Punch, then you lose to it. That's as simple as it gets. Zeraora is another weird one. If you DD up, you can still handle it. Yeah, if you DD up, you can still handle it anyway. But obviously, you have to, get around Plasma Fist. But if you're roosting, then you're pretty much good to go. Or if you're at +1 and you're roosting, then you always beat Zeraora in a 1v1 scenario. So yeah. Again, you have to be +1 first before that can happen. But I think at +1, if it's Adamant, I think Dragonite is still slower. But if it's Jolly, it can outspeed it. But if it's Adamant, I think Zeraora still outspeeds it at +1. So you still have to factor that in. But yeah. Also Buzzwole beats it too. Or Buzzwole can beat it if it's not running it. Like, if it's running Dual Wing Beat, then Buzzwole can handle, or then Dragonite can beat it. But if it's not, then Buzzwole can 1v1 that always, and just Ice Punch it down, or taunt it, and then Ice Punch it. So, yeah. Overall, it was a good mon. Solid defensive check, solid sweeper. We got Reggie. Oh man, this is my favorite mon. My favorite mon. Oh boy, Reggie Man. Oh, Reggie Man. Reggie Man was fun. Oh, Reggie was so fun. So Reggie had a couple really interesting things it could do when it dropped. Like when the mon first dropped, right? When the mon first dropped, no one took this mon seriously at all. Like, everyone was just like, this mon can't beat ground types. Like, everyone was not taking this mon seriously at all. Even I wasn't. Like, I'll be honest, I did not think Reggie could do it, but Reggie really did it. Reggie really did it, man. It really did it. Like, the mon actually put in a decent amount of work in OU. It's a shame it's in UU now, but at the time, like, it was actually OU, and it was doing fairly well in OU too. So Reggie has a lot of utility options. You can run screens with it. You can run, screens plus spins or your move hazards and whatnot. You had Boom as well for hyper offense teams. Now offensively, this mon can run boots, and it could just pivot. So you just pivot with Volt Switch, and you would do a lot with this thing. Transistor is such a good move, or such a good ability. Getting 1.5 on your electric type moves is insane. Like, that is ridiculous. If you don't have a ground type, you lose to this thing. If you don't have a ground type or a Rillaboom, you just get Volt Switched on the whole game. And Reggie's doing a ton. Like, it's good. It was a good ass mon, and it was so good. Again, it forced a lot of teams to run ground types. Again, that's why. I mean, not exactly, but you get what I'm saying. Like, ground types just became a lot more common. At one point in the meta. But yeah, Reggie was fun. Specs was really fun. But obviously the pivoting set was one of my favorite sets. I love just spinning with this thing and then just electroballing things, especially with that base 200 speed, and especially after a spin too. Electroball is gonna be doing damage. That's gonna be doing damage, bro. Like that is some actual chip. And obviously the mon's very frail, so it will just die to any priority move. Most of the time. So again, a good Sucker Punch, a good Ice Shard, or whatnot can bring that mon very low. And Grassy Glide obviously nukes it, so there's that to mention. But yeah, so in terms of checks, obviously the only ones to mention are just ground types. I would say Ferrothorn, but Ferrothorn gets Volt Switched on, so that's not a check. And I would say Cart as well, but Cart just gets Volt Switched on too, especially if it's faster. I mean, it's gonna be faster. What am I saying? Like, this is what its speed. This is where it's at neutrally. If you invest into it, you outspeed Cart. Like, if you make it like timid, you outspeed Cart. Simple as that. You outspeed Choice Scarf Cart, because Choice Scarf Cart goes up to 519, I believe. I think it's 519, 522. No, it's 522. It outspeeds it just neutrally. So yeah, or just like at a positive nature speed. So that's one thing to note. So it outsped most of the Choice Scarfers, which was insane. Like this mon was something else, man. I loved it. It was such a fun mon. But yeah, spin, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, or whatever. I think it was a spin, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, or some other shit. Yeah, spin, Volt Switch, Electro Ball, and then Thunderbolt, or whatever you wanted. And you pretty much were going to go with that. Spikes wasn't bad. It was very good paired with Electric Terrain. So if you have Coco paired with it, then you're going to be doing some massive damage to a lot of things. Like, for example, Ferrothorn gets two-shotted by Rising Voltage off this thing in Electric Terrain. Blissey is another example. That mon gets two-shotted as well. So this thing was a monster under Terrain. And I remember that there was like some niche things that this mon would run. Pairing it with Zoroark to bait the ground, and then he would just trick it a ring target, and then you would and then you could actually hit the ground type with electric type coverage. So yeah, Reggie was that guy. It's a fun mon, very fun mon. I honestly wish I didn't doubt this mon in the beginning, like when it first dropped, but man, I've seen the light, and it's Reggie, and it's Reggie like you met. Fun mon, fun ass mon, one of my favorite mons in this generation. So I'm gonna miss it, but actually it is gonna be coming back though. It will be coming back in Gen 9, with Home or whatever they do, DLC stuff. But yeah, it's a very solid mon. Then we have Heatran. So Heatran, you know, this mon was one of the glue mons in this generation. It did a lot of things for teams. Defensively, it covered for Lele fairly well. It covered for Dragapult to some extent. It was a fairly good Rillaboom check. A little bit iffy on that one, but it could check it. What else did it cover? It was a pretty good Pex check as well, since you had Magma Storm with it, and you could just, taunt it and whatnot. So you had that going for it. And it also covered for Volcarona too. It covered for it very well because, obviously there's no HP ground, so Volcarona is going to get bodied by Heatran almost all the time. And yeah. Now, like I said earlier in the video, Heatran did occasionally run Flame Body just because it covered for a lot of the priority options and also just a lot of the physical attackers in the meta. So again, Rillaboom's a good example of that. If it burns it, then Rillaboom's dead. Simple as that. if Rillaboom gets burned by it, then it's basically a dead mon because it can't do much else after that. What else? But obviously that would make it susceptible to fire moves, so that would mean Volcarona would beat it in a 1v1 scenario, and other fire types would do the same thing to it as well. But again, it had that niche where it covered physical attackers, so it wasn't terrible. Or it's not like it wasn't a terrible niche, but personally, in my opinion, I prefer Flash Fire more than being the degenerate trying to get a burn with it. But hey, it's people's preferences. This is my preference. I like Flash Fire more, but give or take. So yeah, again, defensively, it was good for covering for opposing steals and other fire types as well, and even for some other special attackers too. So it wasn't too bad. Now, this mon was very popular in running Air Balloon. So Air Balloon was like one of its like trademarks, I'd say, for this generation. Air Balloon was great because it basically beat Lando. It would always beat Lando. And there was one time, I think it was a tournament player that actually made this popular, but they ran Eruption with it. So having Eruption and being a ground immunity was solid as fuck. So again, being able to basically 1v1 Lando leads, since again all they ran was Earthquake as their offensive move, or again U-turn or knockoff as their utility options. So you could always like bait the ground type or bait the ground move and just go Heatran on there, and then you would just pressure it right away. So Air Balloon Heatran was great. Honestly, I wish I used it, but I just didn't believe in it enough. Like, I don't think I actually have any teams with Heatran running Air Balloon. Looking back at my squads, I don't think I actually have one running Air Balloon. Let me see. Like going like back really, because I haven't used Heatran in a minute actually. Yeah, I haven't used Heatran in a good while. Yeah, this is like the last Heatran team I used. Yeah, I ran just the defensive sets. Yeah, I never actually took the chance to try Air Balloon, but again, I don't think it was. I'm pretty sure it was good, or like I said, it was good. It was a good set. But personally, I just never really got into it. But yeah. What else about this thing? So like I already showed, or just now, this Spadef set was good. So it would run like Stealth Rock, Toxic, Magma, and then Earth Power. Or you can run Taunt to stop opposing hazard setters, or you can run like Roar to phase things around. Granted, Roar wasn't like that great anyway, because boots are everywhere, so it's not really going to be that beneficial. But there's that. It did become more offensive though, so some players would run Choice Specs with it or Choice Scarf, and that was pretty common on Sun teams too. So you would see a lot of that. Yeah, let me actually like pull up the good old fashioned analysis for Heatran, the Smogon analysis, because I think it goes a little more into detail. Yeah, the Spadef set and then the offensive set, but it doesn't show the Air Balloon set, which is weird. Just Choice Specs. Yeah, it's weird it doesn't show Air Balloon. It did mention Flame Body though. So yeah, covering for Rillaboom and Melm. But obviously you'd be weaker to Volcarona and whatnot. But yeah. Sometimes they would run Stealth Rocks. Honestly, I preferred Heatran as a Stealth Rocker more than like most Stealth Rockers, but obviously when it comes to Stealth Rockers in OU, it kind of like changed a lot throughout the meta. But I'd probably say the most common one was probably Garchomp. I think Garchomp was the most common Stealth Rocker. Ferrothorn was around, but Ferrothorn was also a Stealth Rocker too, but it wasn't like a prominent one. It was more of a spiker than a rocker, really. Looking back at it, but yeah, Heatran wasn't a bad rocker though. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not dismissing this one being a rocker, because it wasn't a bad rocker, but it's just that there were better rockers around. Like again, Garchomp was like the prime candidate. You could also argue Lando as well, but Lando again was just weird. Lando was just weird. Then we have Buzzwole. So I already mentioned how good this thing is. This is the defensive check in OU. Like this thing covered every physical attacker in OU, coming like starting from from Barraskewda all the way down. This thing was the defensive check for everything. The physically defensive check for everything. So again, talking Bisharp, talking Barraskewda, talking DD Pult, talking Dragonite with no dual wing beat, talking Ferrothorn, Garchomp if it's not running Fire Blast, Cart, hardwalled that thing. Hardwalled it. Unless you ran Aerial Ace, then you could beat Buzzwole. But if you're not running that, then you hardwall Buzzwole. You hardwall Lando. You definitely can well, Magnezone's a little bit of an iffy one, but technically you cover for that one as well. Melm, you hardwall that thing if it's not running Toxic. You wall the fuck out of Rillaboom, which is a major plus. And yeah, and then Urshifu as well, and Weavile, and also Zeraora. Granted, Zeraora is a little iffy because of Volt Switch, but you get what I mean. This thing was the defensive wall of the meta. This thing was good as fuck. Now there were some options that you have with this thing. You can run boots, you can run helmet to get chip on things as well. So it kind of depended really on like what you were looking for your team. Boots weren't bad because this made this one always a switch in for the physical attackers, and not to worry about taking chip every turn it comes in. So again, taking rock chip, taking spike chip from things as well. So I probably say boots was the more common one. Lefties wasn't bad though. You could keep this thing healthy and still get past recovery with it as well. And helmet wasn't bad either, because again, you would always get chip on whatever would come in. So you can even get chip on the U-turn from something. You would get chip on like, you know, a Grassy Glide from something, or a Grassy Glide from Rillaboom, and get chip on that thing as well. Granted, that chip wouldn't really matter too much because of Grassy Surge, but you get what I'm saying. It would always force it out regardless. So there's that. What else? What else? And again, I already mentioned Rillaboom or Melmetal. That thing would get walled by it, and it would just get chipped pretty heavily if it's not running Toxic. And yeah, and also you could force out with CC too. But again, like Buzzwole pretty much like ran Taunting a lot. Cover for opposing Buzzwole, cover for Lando, cover for like other physical attackers that it wanted to cover, that it wanted to hit. So there's that too. And yeah. I don't think I really need to go any further than that, because I already covered Buzzwole for a decent chunk already when it came to the physical attackers. But yeah, like I said, it was a solid physical wall, and I am going to miss it dearly. Whenever this mon comes back, I mean, it'll probably do fine anyway, but yeah, this was the defensive mon. And the fact this mon had Roost as well just made it even better too. So again, it was a very, very solid mon. Let's see what the Smogon analysis says about it, because it's probably just going to repeat what I said anyway. Yeah, pretty much this set right here. But yeah, it run Bolt Beam. But Toxic started to get a lot more attention at one point. But yeah, Bolt Beam wasn't too bad. Again, covering for Pex, and also covering for Lando at the same time, and Garchomp too. And CC just hit everything very hard too. So that's another thing to really note about that. But yeah, it's a very solid mon. And that covers Buzzwole. Alright. So now we have the finale part 2. So, finale part 2. I already mentioned Cart already. Scarf Cart was king. This was the better set. And Pads wasn't bad either. I remember Pads getting usage at one point in the meta. It was good because it covered Zapdos and also covered the Helmet Mon. So again, covering Garchomp, covering Ferrothorn, Buzzwole, all of them. Buzzwole doesn't really count, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, it was solid at that. Yeah, an SD set was good with it. I mean, obviously SD was good with it. If you're running Pads, Choice Scarf wasn't bad. I'd probably say Choice Scarf was the more popular one compared to SD. But SD, like I said, wasn't bad either. It just kind of like smashed through everything. And I had to worry about taking all that recoil from things. But Scarf was good in revenge killing things too, and also the fact that it could just knock off Dragapult and knock off Blacephalon was a major plus as well. But this thing being able to just be a fast knockoff user is just a good thing in general. So it got a lot out of it. I mean, there was a lot you could get out of this thing utility wise too. But yeah, it was solid. Again, it was a good cleanup mon too. So again, it would clean up stuff like, you know, Vulcan late game, clean up Weavile, clean up Zeraora, and Pex to some extent, and yeah, and also cleaned up the top boost as well, since it was faster than all three of them. So Leaf Blade would just body all three, and also covered for Bro and King. Slow King or Galar King was a little iffy because of knockoff, and honestly, you can say the same thing with Slowbro too, because again, cards mainly give me clicking knockoff a lot, so it would, you know, remove its Cobra Berry, but at the end, but still, you know, you could just spam Leaf Blade anyway. But he also would have a knockoff switch in though, once its berry's been used up. So there's that to notice, or there's that to really add on. Melmetal could actually handle it fairly well. Now, obviously, if you already have this thing at +1, then Sacred Sword will still do a decent chunk to it, but I don't believe it actually knocks it out. And Melm, and I mean, with cards like high defenses, I don't believe Melm actually can knock it out without chip anyway. So when it comes to superpower anyway, but like EQ, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, it doesn't really do a whole lot to it. So Cart can still get at least like 1 or 2 hits off before it goes down to it. Yeah, there's that to mention. Corviknight actually was a pretty good check to it, but if you're running an SG set, then you beat it. So you beat Corviknight in a 1v1 if you're running SG. But if you're running Scarf or even Band, then Corviknight can definitely handle you fairly well. Dragonite, I already mentioned, was a pretty good check to it. Again, it could take on both of its stabs fairly well. I mean, Smart Shark is a little bit of an iffy one, but it could take on Leaf Blade fairly well too, and just apply pressure at that point. But again, if it's an SG set, then Cart can beat it. After it's multi-skills have been knocked off and everything. But yeah, but even still at +1, No, actually, I'm not going to go that far. But I just want to say that, again, Cart was a fairly good wall breaker and a fairly good sweeper at that as well. So that pretty much covers Cart. Then we have Torn. This thing was stupid as shit. So Torn could do a lot of things in this metagame. Nasty Plot was one of its more offensive sets. Utility-wise, you had Defog, Knockoff, U-Turn, Hurricane stuff. You had Taunt stuff, too, to stop things from setting up and all that jazz. So you could get a lot of momentum with that. Helmet wasn't too bad, and also AV did make a return at one point in the metagame as well, to take on, again, Pole and other special attackers. But obviously that was a little bit weaker compared to its boot set, which, doesn't have to worry about taking rock damage, but with AV you have to worry about that as well, and also have to take damage from, or I mean pretty much like take rock damage and whatnot. So there's that. But yeah, Nasty Plot was pretty good with it. So Nasty Plot Hurricane, utility stuff wasn't too bad. But like a 3 attacking set with Nasty Plot was pretty good too. So Nasty Plot Hurricane, Focus Blast, and then like Icy Wind or whatever. It was pretty good on this thing, so you covered for everything, and it would hit very hard. Now, obviously, there are, like, monsters that are faster than it that can handle it, and also monsters that can't really break them on down anyway. So, you have, like, Zapdos, you have Polt to some extent, you have Lando to some extent as well, but Lando's, again, an iffy one if they're running Icy Wind. You have, again, Ninetales with the terrain, or with the hail up, so for Arc Result, you could pressure that thing as well. Rillaboom, if you're running an offensive Torn, Rillaboom can technically two-shot it. If you're running an SD set, anyway, if you're running SD, then you could actually two-shot this thing. Which is insane, but that is possible. You can two-shot Torn, with SD. Life Orb SD, anyway. But outside that, though, you'd have to be afraid of a knockoff. So catching knockoff on that thing, or knockoff on the switching, would definitely suck for Torn, because then it would get worn down even faster too. If you're running an AV set, then obviously Torn would get bodied by knockoff or it would get bodied by knockoff plus rocks. So that's their dimension, and yeah. Coco beats it. It's faster. Lele. It depends on the spread, but usually Lele can 1v1 that. Pex, you gotta deal with toxic and knockoff stuff. T-Tar is not a mon. Urshifu, Choice Scarf is scary, but Torn can take it on still. Victini, again, Choice Scarf sets, but they weren't super common. Boot sets could actually take on Torn to some extent, but again, you have to deal with Kane, or you have to land Kane on Vic, and if you don't land Kane on Vic, then you're gonna take a lot of damage from Vic anyway. Volcanion could do a lot of damage to it, but also Torn can do the same thing back and even more. So there's that to mention. Volk dies. Weavile can 1v1 Torn, and actually it forces it out anyway. And Zapdos already mentioned. Zapdos has pretty good odds against Torn, and Zeraora outspeeds it. So there's that. Now, on Hail, you actually could run this thing with Weather Ball too. So you could run a Weather Ball set with it, and you could cover for Zapdos a lot better. So there's that too. So Icy Wind wasn't always, like the option for it, but it did have it. Honestly, it was weird because Icy Wind was used more on like an AV set. Like I remember that there were some weird sets that people were running Heat Wave plus Icy Wind. So I'm assuming that was there to cover for Lando and also there to cover for the steals. So yeah, it was an interesting time for this mon. But definitely the Nasty Plot set was one of his stronger sets, and pretty much made this mon what it is today. A defensive pivot and an offensive mon that can just pressure teams. Then we got Zapdos. This mon getting Hurricane was the best thing that came out of this generation. Let me just say that right now. This mon having actual flying coverage made this thing fucking stupid, man. Let me tell you something. Ladies and gentlemen. This mon having flying coverage made it able to beat ground types. Like, you can beat Lando. You can beat Garchomp to some extent. You can beat, what's it called? Yeah, again, Lando and Garchomp are the main ones, really. And also Ferrothorn. You could beat Ferrothorn as well. Granted, like Zapdos already beat Ferrothorn with Heat Wave, but with Hurricane, it's even more pronounced. So there's that. But yeah, Hurricane's just free. It's just free. This mon having Hurricane was a mistake. But it's just free, man. Like, you get so much out of this shit. It's insane. Like, again, the defensive set running Hurricane, even the spec set at one point running Hurricane, this bomb was stupid as shit. And you can even, again, if you're running it on rain, then you have Weather Ball plus Hurricane too, so you're just pressuring everything on every side. So it's just, it was really dumb. It was very dumb. Like, Zapdos should have never got Hurricane, but with it having it, you know, it just pressures everything. Again, in rain, this mon is just dangerous. It's just very dangerous. I mean, like Zapdos and Torn together on rain, it's just ridiculous, man. It really is just ridiculous. But yeah, Specs was going crazy on this set. Again, the defensive sets with Hurricane, Discharge, and whatnot was pretty good, or Volt Switch was pretty good. I think some ran Toxic at one point. It wasn't like super common, but some did run Toxic. Hurricane, I think, was just a little bit better since, again, you cover for Lando and everything else, too. I believe that a 3-attack set was also common as well, so you could run, like, Hurricane Heat Wave Volt Switch or Hurricane Heat Wave Discharge Roost and whatnot, so you had that option as well. But yeah, again, offensively, this mod was just very, very good. Defensively, it didn't really change that much. It still covered those things that we mentioned before, like, again, covering Cart, covering Rillaboom, all those things, and other fighters as well. So it was solid at that. It was very solid at that. But the mod didn't really change too much, besides getting Hurricane and just making it a better offensive threat to things. So yeah, solid mod. It pretty much won this generation. It was one of the winners of this generation. Garchomp. Oh, let me tell you about my boy Garchomp, man. Garchomp was fun. Garchomp was fun as shit. Now, let me tell you why Garchomp was so fun. Now, an ST set was one of its better sets. ST was very good. ST Skill Shot, Quake, Stone Edge, or whatever you could put on that, like Aquatil or whatever you want. That was good. That was a very good set. This thing basically getting a DD was nice. It was nice as fuck. Just being able to pressure a lot of other teams as well, and, you know, just get a lot of offensive pressure going. Again, the fact that Lando was Spadef means that Skill Shot is going to be doing a lot of damage to it, so you will just keep pressuring that thing over and over again. With +2 Skill Shot, especially if you land as well. If you land it, then you're obviously golden. But yeah, +2 Skill Shot was great on this thing. Now obviously there were checks to Garchomp. You know, you have Buzzhole, which is one of its best checks. If you're not running, I'm not gonna say Fair Threat's not a check to it. Again, Lando to some extent. Obviously, if you can bring it in on a, if you can bring it in before, or actually no, even if you bring it in before, like, you can still get pressured by it. But you have to be aware of, like, Toxic and whatnot too. So there's that. What else? Weavile is a good example. That's a mon you really got to be aware of when you're using Garchomp. You really got to cover for Weavile too. The faster fairies, again, Scarf, Lele, Coco, Feeny, they could all pressure Garchomp. Now, Feeny's a little iffy though, because Feeny, if it's at full, it can live a hit, but if it's been chipped already, then, you know, +2 Garchomp will just drop that thing. If it's Scarf, then obviously Garchomp dies, but if it's a more defensive set, then, you know, +2 Quake will do a ton to it. Coco, if it's not faster, or I mean, if it hasn't set up yet, then Coco beats it with Dazzle. Or it could just trade, or you trade with it. Because sometimes Coco doesn't kill Garchomp in one go. Sometimes. If it's Specs, it'll probably kill it, or has better odds of killing it. But if it's not Specs, then Garchomp can live the hit. Lele, like I said, if it's Scarf, then Lele beats it. But if you get the DD up, or if you get the Scale Shot up first, then Garchomp will easily take this mon out. Torn, if you don't set up first, then obviously Torn will beat it. Pex dies, Tar dies. Urshifu is a weird one, because, I mean, its defense is actually pretty good. Its HP and defense is pretty good, so it actually has pretty good odds in living at least one Earthquake from it at +2. But neutrally, though, it could definitely take a hit and can revenge kill it back, or at least, like, be able to chip it down enough. Again, if it's running Ice Punch, they can deal with it. And Surging still does a pretty good chunk too, but you have to, you know, factor in Rough Skin Chip and all that stuff. Victini dies, Volcanion dies, Volcarona dies, Weavile beats it, Zapdos. If you're running Stone Edge, then you beat it. If you're not, then you gotta hope you get all your hits on Zapdos. That's as simple as it gets. Zero Aura, if you haven't set up yet, then Zero Aura, actually, Zero just knocks you off, or player offs you, but it doesn't even do enough. So Garchomp technically wins in that 1v1 scenario. I think I already mentioned Rillaboom. Rillaboom technically shits on this thing, so there's that. Cart's kind of the same thing as well, but that's a little bit of an iffy one too. But yeah. So you had the offensive set, then you had the Rocky Helmet defensive set. So the Rocky Helmet set could do a plethora of things. Some ran Dragon Tail to phase things out. Some ran Roar. Some ran Earthquake. But a lot of the time, like, it was just the standard stuff: Stealth Rock, Earthquake, Dragon Tail or Toxic, Dragon Tail or Toxic, and then I think I already mentioned Flamethrower. And then you have EQ as well. But yeah, the Mon could switch up a couple things. Sometimes they ran Rest as well to get recovery back. Just that way they can keep it around a little bit longer too. But yeah, those are just some occasional things that Garchomp did. But yeah, offensively, this thing was way better, I think. It was way better as an offensive threat than being a defensive check. But it was still good as a defensive check. Don't get me wrong. Like, Tank Chomp won this generation too. It was good. It was good as fuck this generation. But personally, I'm more of an offensive Garchomp kind of guy. So I enjoyed Scale Shot Chomp a lot. That mon was very fun. And it's sad, but Scale Shot did get cut from this generation, or did get cut from Gen 9. So no more Scale Shot Garchomp, but it was still fun nonetheless. I enjoyed my time with that mon. Again, I used this on the Hyper Offense. It was pretty good. Now obviously mine had Stealth Rock too. Honestly, you could run like an SD type with Stealth Rock too, and it could still do some work for you as well. But yeah, Stone Edge, Stone Edge SD, Scale Shot was great, and again, Tank Chomp was pretty fun as well. Lumberry was pretty good too. You could run that over the Life Orb set too, and you can still get a lot out of it as well. But yeah, and again, Tank Chomp with Fire Blast was pretty good too. So yeah, just a couple more options that this mon could do. Fire Fang was pretty good as well, since you could hit Ferrothorn and other steel types too, but mostly Ferrothorn anyway. And yeah, again, it was a solid mon, and I think the mon will still continue to be good. Honestly, I really do. You didn't even, sometimes you didn't have to run Scale Shot too. You could just put Stone Edge EQ or Edgequake on it, and you could still get a lot out of it anyway. So pretty much like what it did back in Gen 7, except no Z, so you can't go for Rocky MZ on things. But overall, Garchomp did very well this generation. Alright, how much time have I wasted? Okay, it has been that long. It has been that long. Alright, the losers of Sword and Shield. This one hurts, actually. I'm not gonna lie. This one hurts me. This one hurts me on a emotional level. Escadrille, man. It's actually, Sand took a really heavy hit. Sand did not do well in this generation. Obviously, it's because of one mon, Rillaboom. Rillaboom really just shut down. It shut down two playstyles. Grassy Glide is honestly one of the strongest moves we've ever seen. That move with that mon, or with the Grassy Surge mon in general, is just too good. It shuts down two different playstyles at the same time. That is just incredible to me. So much that it dropped mon's niches. Again, Hippo and Drill. But more Drill than Hippo anyway, because Hippo could still be ran without a Sand Setter, or without a Sand Rush user, or a Sand Rush mon. But yeah, Drill took a very heavy hit. This mon, it couldn't do anything. Honestly, I almost want to say that going back to Gen 7, I think the reason why this mon stayed relevant was because of Z moves. Going back to it, Z, Giga, Giga Impact Z, or even Cilium Z off SD Drill was so good in breaking stuff like Zapdos and other defensive checks. But without Z moves, the mon just doesn't really hit as hard as it used to. Which is unfortunate. But another mon that really killed off Drill was Corviknight. Corviknight shut that mon down completely. This mon just could not do shit. It's funny because the only way you can really get Drill to be effective enough was running it with Gravity Sand. And even with that, like, I mean, that's really the only way. Like, Gravity Sand's really the most you'll get out of Drill now if you run it on Sand, which is very disappointing. Because this Mon was just something. This Mon was something else for the last 2 generations, or for the last 3 generations since its debut. But yeah, Drill took a very heavy nerf, and now it's in UU, which is incredible. That just shows you like where power creep is hit this meta, where power creep is hitting OU. Like, you have Mons like Drill dropping into UU. Like, that's incredible to me. But yeah, it's unfortunate that this Mon had to go. I don't know what they could do to make it better. I want to say, like, give it Stone Edge. I think that would be a pretty good start. Like, Stone Edge would be pretty good on this thing instead of Rock Slide. That wouldn't be too bad. And probably give it better fighting coverage too. Just that way it doesn't have to rely on stuff like Brick Break. But I mean, it's not like it really needs Brick Break like that anyway. Because I mean, Quake and Quake Ironhead's still good. It's just that, again, Corviknight is one of the mons that really shut this mon down. To the point where, again, it's just unviable. Like, the mon had some usage in the early parts of Sword and Shield. Like, again, during the, like, before Rillaboom got Grassy Surge. Before it got Grassy Surge, Rillaboom, or Drill was actually pretty good. It wasn't bad. And it could still somewhat get around Corviknight. But it wasn't, like, you know, it wasn't easy, but it did have the potential to do it. But, you know, when you add Corviknight plus Rillaboom to the mixture, and then you add Zapdos back as well, it's just a lot harder for this mon to really get going. And then you also have to add like Buzzwole too, which shuts this mon down completely as well. So the meta just was not favoring Drill at all, and physical checks just shat on this mon completely. So it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of where power creep goes. I really don't know what they can do to make Drill better, or make Drill relevant again. Like, I think the spin buff did help it a little bit. It definitely gave it like that speed boost that it needed. But it's not like it really needed it in the first place when you're running it on Sand Rush. Or when you're running it with Sand. But still, if they could make Drill better, or make Drill like more viable, then I really think it needs better fighting coverage. I think that's what it really needs. Like, better fighting coverage, and maybe something to get around Buzzwole. Granted, that's going to be hard to do, but I think Stone Edge is probably a good start. So if this mon comes back and gets Stone Edge, that's going to be great for it. I think this mon has Rock Blast, actually. I think that might have been one of the new moves it got. Yeah, I did get Rock Blast. But even still, like, I think Stone Edge would be much better, honestly. I do think Stone Edge would be better. And what some other things they could do. And it's really hard to put, you know, Aerial Ace on this thing. Because, I mean, that is technically a check for Buzzwole. That technically counts as a check, but then you have to cover for, again, got to cover for Zapdos, and you still got to cover for other things as well. You need Earthquake still, so it's really tough. Like, you can't really run one move to cover for the other. That's why I think Stone Edge would kind of be a good move for this thing to have, to at least get around its checks a little bit better and actually hit things a lot harder. Because again, Rock Slide just is not enough at +2. You need Stone Edge, man. The mon needs Stone Edge. I think that'll save it to some extent. But that's what I think about Drill. We got Tar. Okay. Now let me tell you about Tar, man. Tar is my baby. Okay. Tar is my baby. I love Tar, man. Tar is such a fun mon. It does everything you need it to do. It does everything you need to do. DD sets, choice band sets, utility sets. The mon just had an AV. Like, the mon just has a lot of good tools, but it's the fact that it's just the meta just is just prepared for Tar in general. There's so many checks to Tar that the mon has to struggle to get around a lot of it, to get around a lot of things. It just has to struggle. It's actually pretty damn sad when you look at it, and the fact that Ghost types just shit on it in general. Like, it's really, really sad that Tar got completely bodied in this generation. Like, so bodied that it ended up dropping into UU. Like, this mon was OU for, like, what, how many years? Since Gen 2? So, like, this mon was OU for 20 plus years. Which is insane. but then it dropped. But then it dropped in this generation after like 2 decades. That's incredible to me. That is incredible to me that T-Tar dropped like that. But again, power creep is a bitch. Power creep is indeed a bitch. Too many things just pressure this Mon too much. I mean, the Mon still managed to stay OU though, so it still was able to like stay around. So technically, it didn't really lose, but it's just that it has a much harder time. It had a much harder time this generation compared to previous generations. Like, I really do think that the pursuit nerf, or that pursuit being moved or being removed, just made T-Tar just so much worse. Now obviously there's a counter to this, because I believe in Nat decks it still runs pursuit, so you have a little bit more leeway with that Mon there. But still, man, it's just disappointing that this is where this Mon is right now. Again, the Mon isn't bad. The Mon isn't bad at all. Like, it technically didn't lose this generation, but it definitely got heavily, like, pressured. So, it's just tough for T-Tar, man. It really is. It's really sad to see this Mon drop so much, but it managed, though. It managed. Now, I don't remember what's the popular set right now. I think the best set this Mon has currently is still just running utility stuff. I don't know if like Choice Band's still popular. Because I remember this thing being pretty good during the Sword and Shield meta, or I mean the beginning of the Sword and Shield meta. Choice Band was not bad on that thing. It was pretty good actually. Looking back at it, it was actually very strong off Choice Band Tar. Because again, you could just Stone Edge everything pretty much in the metagame. And again, you had Stone Edge, Crunch, Quake, or like Superpower or whatever. So it had coverage options. So it actually hit things fairly hard. But yeah, that's kind of where it really ends though. Defensively, it does have, the utility sets right here. But outside of that though, like it was just kind of tough really to get around it. Yeah, Choice Band was one of its ways. And they do mention some other stuff as well. Again, Choice Band. Choice Specs is funny. Oh, and that's not Choice Specs. It's just Choice Band with the bulk on it. Again, Choice Band with Superpower. Again, utility sets with Ice Beam as well to lure Tar, or to lure Lando and lure Garchomp. So again, it wasn't terrible, but again, its job just got so much harder. That's all I really got to say about T-Tar. Again, the mod's not bad. It's just a lot harder to use now. Gengar. Okay, Gengar. This Mon's interesting, right? This was the generation that got Nasty Plot, if I recall. So, Gengar getting Nasty Plot was pretty big. That was a pretty big buff for it. But why didn't it stay OU? Well, there's a good reasoning for that. There's a pretty good reasoning for that. It's called Dragapult, and it's called faster dark types, and it's called priority. Yeah. And also it just doesn't hit as hard as you think it would. But yeah, the Mon, how do I say this? Like, how do I really talk about Gengar? Because, like, it's not terrible. It's kind of the same thing going with T-Tar. The Mon just has a lot more competition now. Dragapult being, like, the main contender. And just being a ghost type that can pivot. That's the big deal. Dragapult is a ghost type that can pivot on dark types. Or just on anything in general. And not have to really fear anything. Like, that's the main takeaway from this thing. Gengar doesn't have that luxury. Like, the best thing it can do is, again, maybe run a Scarf set. Or you run, like, sub Nasty Plot. That's really all Gengar can do. And again, it's not bad at it. It's not bad at it at all. But, like I said, it's just a little bit harder for it to really get going. And obviously the subset gets beat down by, Dragapult anyway. But another thing to note, too, is that, with more Mons being more on the Spadef side, like Lando, for example, also Blissey as well, Ballistic doesn't technically count, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, but all these like other defensive checks to it, like honestly, if you look at it just from, just looking at it like from a looking at it from just like a, I can't think of the word, but just a straightforward point of view, it's not bad actually. It's genuinely not a bad ghost type. Again, it's just like on paper it doesn't look bad, but in practice it just has a lot of issues. It just has a lot of issues. Like it technically can cover for the fairies with Choice Scarf Sludge Bomb. Like it's not bad at that. But again, the Mon can get walled pretty easily by some things as well. And again, priority just kind of sucks for it. And it didn't really have a niche, I want to say. Maybe I might be a little bit wrong about that, because I think it had something going for it during the Crown Tundra meta. Honestly, you know what? I want to take that back. I might take that back about Gengar, because I feel like this Mon, no, it's tough to say it could have done something during Isle of Armor 2. I think it actually could have. I think it could have. I think the Mon was kind of like just missed opportunity, I think. But there were also like some other things around it at the time too. Again, Cinderace and Cinderace really was one of the bigger ones, or was one of the bigger threats really. But I don't think the Mon was that bad. Looking at it, I genuinely don't think it was that bad. I just think, again, people just favor Dragapult more. But a Nazeepod Gengar is just so disgusting. But yet it didn't pop off, and I'm really trying to figure out why exactly that wasn't the case. Like, why didn't this Mon pop off like it should have? Because, again, offensively, it's not bad. It's not a bad offensive Mon at all. But, again, when you have just, like, better defensive checks, it's just harder to really, commit to. And also, when you have a faster Ghost type in general, it's even harder to commit to that, too. You have a faster Ghost type, and you have a faster hit, and you have a Ghost type that hits harder than Gengar by 20 points. Granted, it's slower, but it has fire coverage too, so you hit everything you need to hit. But Gengar just has to kind of rely on, again, nasty plotting up. So that's kind of the difference. That's kind of the difference between, between these other Ghosts. Like, these Mons hit pretty hard and have enough utility to really get around things. But Gengar being 130, 130 is not bad special attack. And yet this Mon is UUBL. I really don't know how to explain Gengar to you guys. I really don't. I think this Mon is just unfortunate, man. It just is. It's just an unfortunate case for it. Yeah, see, it did have something going on in the Isle of Armor, but again, it just wasn't as seen. And it's just really confusing to me why that was the case. But I do think that one of the sets that could have been used more might have been like a Choice Scarf set. Maybe that could have done something. Especially during, again, the Isle of Armor metagame. I think that might have been something that people could have tested. But it's just kind of disappointing, really. But I think in hindsight, this Mon could have done some things. But again, too many priority options, knockoff being everywhere, and it being grounded, taking chip from everything too. It's really tough to consider. But yeah, that's Gengar for you. Bulu. So this Mon, God, wow. Honestly, all this Mon needed was like play rough. That's all I gotta say. All this Mon needed was play rough. If it had play rough, at least it could do something a little bit more than what Rillaboom could do. Play rough would at least give it a little bit more offensive pressure. Because 130 compared to 125 is a pretty big difference. But without that stab added onto it, Bulu just can't be as aggressive as it could be. Honestly, having Bulu with SD, Play Rough, CC, Hornleech was everyone's dream. Everyone wanted to see Bulu go off. but it never happened. So all you could really do was run SD, CC, Hornleech, and like, you know, Stone Edge or something. But even still, the Mon just didn't really cut it. But yeah, if it had Play Rough, it could beat stuff like Buzzwole, it could be other fighter types, it could be other like fighters as well. And it could cover for again Urshifu a lot better too. Like the Mon just missed. The Mon really just missed. Like Play Rough was something this Mon needed. And the fact it didn't get it was a major L. And the fact that there was a grass type that beat it, and also had priority too. Like I think if Bulu had priority as well, then this Mon would be, you know, much better as well. That's something to note. But yeah, again, like this is another Mon that fell to Corviknight. So another Mon that fell to Corviknight, and another Mon that fell to Buzzwole as well, or that fell to Buzzwole too. And yeah, like it covered for everything else fairly well. It's just that, you know, when it comes to defensive checks like Buzzwole and Corviknight, that's just a lot harder for it to really get through. Technically, it's possible when you have it paired with a fire, but even still, like that's still pretty tough as well. Because again, you got to pivot around, and you got to do with like it's other like options too. Oh, another thing, Galar King walled this thing to hell and back as well. You cannot break this Mon. You can't break this Mon with Bulu, so that's another thing to note. Yeah, and also with the grassy surge, it did nerf Bulu a little bit as well. So again, not being able to one-shot Pex like it used to last gen, or in Gen 7, and also being able to beat down Torn as well. This Mon was going off in Gen 7 with that 1.5 boost. Like Woodhammer was doing damage to things. Like I remember seeing like Magearna drop to Choice Band Woodhammers. Like that shit was insane. But hey man, Power Creep is a bitch, and so is nerfing. So yeah. Now obviously, you know, Bulu did get checked fairly like really hard by again the Mons that again Buzzwole, Corviknight, and also had competition with Bulu, or not Bulu, with Rillaboom. So there's that. And again, obviously we know which Mon won in the end of the day anyway. But yeah, this Mon was something else with Z moves that I gotta say. Rocky MZ was very fun on this thing, and Grassy MZ was fun too. But yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's pretty much Bulu's story. It was fun though. It was fun, but yeah, I kind of wish I used this thing. I should have used this thing in this generation, but I never really considered Bulu because I just thought about Rillaboom more, which is sad to say, but that's kind of what happened. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Alright, so honorable mentions. I'm not putting Dragonite. I'm taking Dragonite out because I don't need Dragonite anymore. I already talked about that Mon. So my bad. That was only because I thought I didn't talk about it, but I did talk about it. Okay, I'm going to try and speed through these things as best as I can because I've been talking on like 2 hours now. Almost 2 hours now. So here we go. Magic Bounce. The end. This thing was good on Trick Room. It was very good on Trick Room. Psychic Fairy was just great on this thing when it first started it out. During the Dynamax meta, I remember using this thing in Ubers, and it was very good. Again, I loved using this thing on basically making like a Trick Room set with it. So it was pretty good on that. Loved it. You compare it with Dracovish in Ubers, and it was doing some work as well at the time. And also, you know, just coming off its max flares was pretty good too back in Ubers. And I think even during the Dynamax meta, it was the same thing as well. Magic Mouse was good because you could basically, you know, reverse sweep, you know, off taunt users. So if they want to taunt you, they can't do it. Then you can just Trick Room up, and then you'll be able to apply a lot of offensive pressure with this thing, especially being under Dynamax. Now after Dynamax, this thing was in an interesting spot. I remember seeing a lot of defensive Calm Mind sets being ran on this thing, so it was pretty good defensively. You saw a lot of like Draining Kiss, Calm Mind stuff, Psychic, and like Mystical Fire to cover for the Steel types. So it wasn't bad. It was pretty good at that, and it covered for Ferrothorn fairly well too, and some other mons as well. When Isle of Armor came out, Hat was kind of falling off a little bit. It was there, but it wasn't really there like that. So it was just kind of like occasionally there, but the Mon was definitely starting to fall. Off once Isle of Armor came out. So, it couldn't cover for things like, you know, Volcarona and all that, and it couldn't cover for Urshifu because obviously Urshifu beat that Mon down, and yeah. So that pretty much covers Hat. After Isle of Armor, this Mon basically just died off, and that was that. So I will say though, for its time, it was definitely a solid mon. I enjoyed my time using it, and I really wish I used it more. Again, I really wish I used like the Calm Mindset more, and even use Trick Room more. But even on Trick Room, it was good too. Like after Isle of Armor, after once Home came out and then Mel Model came out, the mon was pretty good for Trick Room teams. So it was a very solid Trick Room mon or Trick Room setter. So again, running Sash with it, and then getting off your Healing Wish to bring it back for something else, or bringing back a mon to full. After it's been chipped and everything, you can bring that mon back, and then, you could store that Healing Wish and then bring back a weakened mon. So it wasn't bad in terms of team support. So it was a good mon. Very solid mon. I loved Hat. I liked Grim more, though, but Hat definitely had its place. Bisharp. Now, I know I mentioned Bisharp a lot, but again, this one's an honorable mention. This one, Bisharp had an interesting time in OU. This mon was running a lot of different sets. Choice Band, SD. I think there were some bulky sets as well at the time. But this mon was very good in the early parts of the Sword and Shield metagame. Even though it didn't have knockoff, it was still pretty powerful. Again, running SD sets, or even going Choice Band with it as well. And then once Isle of Armor came out, it became a little bit more prominent, and covering for a lot of its checks. Granted, it did get hard walled by what's it called, by that one mon, by Urshifu. But besides that, though, it kind of held its own. Conkeldurr was definitely a mon that did shut Bisharp down for a little bit. But once Conkeldurr left, then Bisharp started to get more attention and started to be used more on Dark Spam, especially when all the ghosts started to pop up. So again, like during the Crown Tundra metagame, Bisharp definitely started to get a lot more attention. And, you started to see it more on, like, Dark Spam teams. And yeah, again, SD knockoff is just free in general. It's very, very free. I remember there was one time people were using Beat Up on this thing, too. If I recall. I think Beat Up was a thing at one point. But just because I think it went through the, if I'm wrong, it didn't go through Helmet and whatnot. But it was still pretty solid at one point. But yeah, SD, yeah, there's the Choice Band set. So the Choice Band set did run Assurance or Beat Up. And yeah, you had the Life Orb Black Glasses set with it as well. So this was pretty much like the common set that the mon ran a lot. But yeah, again, Beat Up was very common at one point during the Crown Tundra metagame. We have Rhyperior. Now this guy right here, this guy was a sleeper, man. Let me tell you, man. I liked Rhyperior a lot during the beginning of Sword and Shield. Again, starting from post Dynamax all the way up to Home. Even Isle of Armor to some extent, but definitely up to Home. This mon was so fun to use. Like, SD Rhyperior was basically what Garchomp is right now. That's basically what Rhyperior was during post Dynamax and Home metagame. It was basically a wall breaker it was a wall breaker that could also set up hazards. But yeah, you had Rock Blast, which was better than Stone Edge at the time, just because didn't want to miss things. You also had Smackdown too, which could cover for Corviknight, so you had Earthquake to cover for that as well. And yeah, it was just a solid mon. Very, very solid wall breaker. Love that thing. And also, it was a fairly decent check to Rotom. Not like a super check to it, but it was at least a decent check enough. They could take a hit from it and then be able to apply pressure. Now, obviously, once Rotom got, like, toxic and also could wisp things, then Rhyperior just became a lot worse. But it was still good for its time. It was definitely a solid wall breaker. I love that thing. It was very fun. Then we got Crawdaunt. Crawdaunt, honorable mention. This thing, this mon's always good. This mon's never bad. Choice Band is great. SG's good. But definitely Choice Band is really the wave of this thing. When this mon got close combat, like, it was over for Ferrothorn. I mean, granted, like, Choice Band knockoff is already strong enough on Ferrothorn, but the fact you can just, CC it is just funny as shit. So there's that. But overall, knockoff is just free on everything with a Choice Band, and Crawdaunt just never loses. Jet's nice as well for cleaning up in late games. It was pretty good on, like, mixed offense, well, not mixed offense, but, like, bulky offensive teams. And I think even on, like, some rain teams as well, you saw Crawdaunt occasionally. But yeah, solid wall breaker. One of the best at it. And again, it was like that from Home, or from, because this mon was in the base decks, I believe. So it was pretty solid throughout the generation. But again, I didn't really mention it too much just because, like, Crawdaunt didn't have, like, a ton of appearances. But it was still good for when it showed up. Like, when it showed, it was definitely putting in work. So yeah, we got Rotom. So Rotom is kind of like I mentioned earlier about, or like I mentioned in the first part about Darmanitan, or about Galadarm walling it. You could technically wall it with Rotom, but again, you had to deal with taking U-turn chip, which would do like almost 40%. So there's that dimension. But overall, it was a fairly decent check to Darm at the time, and yeah, and then when Crown Tundra came out, well, actually no, let me scratch that. When Isle of Armor came out, it was, I don't want to say it was an okay check to Volcarona, because it really wasn't. It was like okay, but the fact that you can just, QD up and then just Giga Drain it, it didn't really matter too much in the end. But overall, it was good in covering for stuff like Corviknight, and even pressuring stuff like Pex as well. So I mean, like +2 water plus electric coverage is still not bad. Like, it was good for its time, especially covering for stuff like Hippowdon as well, and whatnot, and even Tar too. But yeah, Wisp plus Nasty Plot wasn't bad on it. So again, going back to what Rotom Heat did, but better. But yeah, so overall it wasn't bad. And then when Crown Tundra came out, we had a much better check to Melmetal being Rotom. So Rotom still was a good check to Mel. One of the best checks, actually, I'd say. I'd argue, going back to Rotom Heat also was a good check too. But Rotom just covered Heat, or just covered Melm just a little bit better than the Rotom Heat, with burning things, or with burning it just better, and just defensively just covered it a little bit more. So there's that, and also didn't have to take wrong damage too in case it got knocked off as well. So there's that. So Rotom Wash, in a sense, got a lot out of this generation too. But again, it wasn't like super pronounced either. So it was just kind of a sleeper mon for this gen. Again, Rotom Heat definitely won this generation in terms of like all the other Rotom forms. I'd say that one and even Rotom Mo, but Rotom Mo's like, that's a whole different topic. That's a whole different topic, and I don't think I'll have enough time to really talk about that anyway. There's that. Obstagoon, it was funny. It's funny. This thing's funny. This thing's funny as hell. It's funny because it's a ghost immunity, but yet it didn't really get attention. Like, it just didn't. It wasn't a bad mon per se, because at the time for the meta, like, it was fairly good, but there were things at the time that just kind of stopped it, like Kinkeldor, Mach Punch, dead. So yeah, there's that. But even outside that though, I think the mon was solid enough. It could still do some work. Like, again, not SD, but like flame boosted or flame orb guts boosted facades, they hurt a lot, and especially when you pair it with knockoff too. Yeah, that's doing a lot to most things. So it's not like it was bad at it, but again, like, it just came with the meta at the time. It just came with the meta, and also if you're not a dark type without priority, you get beat by ghost types. So Dragapult beats that thing, if going by that logic. So, Dragapult would basically Draco it or just pivot out on it and not really care. And there's that, pretty much. So the only thing this mon really needs is priority. Like, if it ever gets Sucker Punch, then Obstagoon will be one of the most busted dark types we'd ever seen. But that never happened. But Sucker Punch was something this mon desperately needed. So the day this mon gets it, people will be lapping on this mon. They'll be like, yo, this mon's so good. It's one of the best dark types we've ever seen. But yeah, until that day happens, Obstagoon is just kind of there. But Facade's still strong. Don't get me wrong. Still a strong mon. I remember at one, like, technically this is one of the stronger Facade mons, especially since you get stab off it too. So being able to clap stuff like Clef and also like other mons as well at the time, like, it was good. You didn't really see this mon in Isle of Armor. I don't remember seeing this mon in Isle of Armor. Again, like, I just remember seeing it like in the early parts of Sword and Shield. Again, post Dynamax and a little bit of Home. But after that, this mon disappeared off the face of the planet. Hydreigon, Nasty Plot, Draco, man. This mon was going dummy. Oh my goodness. Hydreigon with Nasty Plot was the greatest thing ever made. Like, Nasty Plot boosted Draco Meteors were insane. Of course, Hydreigon could apply like Flash Cannon to deal with Clef. That was a thing at one point, and it was pretty good at that too. And yeah, Dark Pulse covered for a decent chunk of the meta as well. Yeah, overall, this mon was doing so many things. It was very solid as a breaker, or as a wall breaker. Occasionally you saw Choice Scarf on it, but it wasn't like super common. And Choice Specs wasn't bad either. But Nasty Plot was kind of really what took this mon like to greater heights. But yeah, I remember that people ran like Nasty Plot plus Life Orb on it at one point. But Sub was pretty good too, so Sub Nasty Plot wasn't too bad. It did get Earth Power as well, so it did cover for Heat Train and stuff too. But again, that wasn't like, you know, something that happened currently. Because again, like Hydreigon didn't really see a whole lot of play. After Isle of Armor. Like, I don't remember seeing this mon during Crown Tundra. I don't think it was really around like that. I mean, technically it wasn't a bad check to Spectrier, but outside that though, like, you really didn't see it that much. So it kind of just died off after home, or after Isle of Armor. But for what it was doing, it was pretty good at it. Nasty Plot Dracos was going crazy. So that mon definitely solidified itself. So Chandelure, this mon, you know, early meta, when it had boots, it was a good Calm Mind setter. Yeah, early meta, this one was a good Calm Mind setter. Specs wasn't too bad at the time as well. And you did have Trick with it too, so you could actually, you know, get some momentum in your favor by tricking things away. But overall, like, it was a good Specs mon. It wasn't too bad. Very solid mon. Liked using it with the, or liked, again, it was just solid enough to really get by things. It did die off after Isle of Armor, just because, you know, or Shifu. So it died off after Isle of Armor, but for its time, it was good during the home, or during the post Dynamax and home metagame. Then we have Mamo. Ooh, Mamo. Now Mamo was a very special mon. Very special mon. This mon was very solid. Choice Band was pretty good. Pretty damn good. Now, obviously, there were things to really look out for. You know, Rotom was one of the bigger threats. But if you're fighting a Rotom Mo or a Rotom Wash, then you had Freeze Dry to cover for it. So, you know, Life Orb Freeze Dry was pretty good on it. It didn't get knockoff until home, so when it got knockoff, it started to become a little bit more prevalent, or it started to become a little bit better. But overall, like, Choice Band EQ just covered a lot of the meta in general. Like, again, at one point, ground types were really putting in a lot of work. But again, when Rillaboom came out, you know, Mamo just kind of fell off the face of the planet. So yeah, you didn't really see Mamo too much after Isle of Armor. So yeah, it was still solid though. It was a solid mon. Diggersby is kind of the same thing as well. It was solid for again the first part of home. Or for the early parts of home, but you know, once Rillaboom came out and, you know, started grassy gliding, Diggersby just died. So yeah, I mean, it was good though. It was a good, like, normal type. You know, I did mention a long time ago in my normal type video that normal types were kind of underappreciated. Like, I think they actually had a decent enough niche. But obviously Diggersby, there were a lot more things to really consider at the time with it. Got to consider Kinkeldor and, like, some other, like, priority options too. And also, you know, it was just it was fairly slow. I mean, it's not like it was unusable or anything, but it definitely, like, took a little bit to really get it going. But still, it wasn't bad. Again, Choice Band sets were pretty good. ST sets weren't that bad as well. And it did keep spikes, so you could, you know, pressure things still offensively with spike pressure. But overall, like, again, once Rillaboom came out and Urshifu dropped as well, this mon just kind of fell off the face of the planet. But yeah, Terrakion was also kind of the same thing as well. But it wasn't bad for the first part of the home metagame. It was a pretty good breaker, actually. Looking back at it, it was a pretty good breaker for its time. Because again, this was when Kyurem was around. So when Kyurem was around, you know, Terrakion was one of the ways to actually cover for it, in a sense. So Choice Band wasn't too bad on it. SD wasn't bad as well. I think Dual Dance was a thing at one point, but I might be wrong. It probably didn't need Dual Dance because, again, the meta was very like slow, honestly. Again, the average speed was somewhere around, like, I think 80 at the time. And then, you know, you had the fast shits just randomly being around, like, again, Zero Aura and Dragapult. So it was in a comfortable speed. It was at a comfortable speed tier at the time, but yeah, like I said, the mon just kind of fell off. Once once Olive Armor came out, and things just started to get bulkier, and then Terrakion kind of died at that point. So yeah, it didn't come back after Olive Armor, and that's why this mon's still kind of down here. It's actually kind of surprising this mon was managed to be UUBL, so it was just enough. It did get like some new stuff though. It did get Mega Horn, so it did cover for stuff like the Slow Bros at the time. But after that, the mon just kind of fell off. So I don't know what else. I don't know what else they could do to make the mon better. Cause I like Terrakion. Terrakion's a cool mon, but again, like it's just missing a couple things. Like I don't know. I don't really know how to really put it, but I think maybe what Terrakion needs. I feel like it needs ice coverage. Maybe it needs either ice coverage or no. It needs ice coverage. That's what this mon needs. Mon needs ice coverage. If it has that, I think it's pretty golden. That and maybe a Cell Rock if it ever gets that. Like those two options, I think would make this mon immensely better than what it is now. Because again, the mon's not bad. It has tools, but just not enough for this metagame, unfortunately, or just not enough really to make it a top tier threat like it used to be back in Gen 5. But yeah. So for what it did, it wasn't bad. Primarina, this mon's niche back in the home metagame, or home / Isle of Armor metagame. This thing was a pretty good defensive check to what's it called, to Urshifu at the time, and also with it getting Calm Mind plus Draining Kiss, this mon just became pretty much a baby Tapu Fini, being able to just Calm Mind up and then just keep spamming it. So you just keep spamming Calm Mind, then you just keep Draining Kissing things. So it was pretty good at that. And just applying a lot of pressure to things and just keep spamming the move, basically. You had Scald with that as well, so you could just burn like offensive threats, and then just keep scalding them, or keep scalding them for burn chances. Then once they're burned, then you basically just 1v1 them with Draining Kiss. So it was very good at that. And yeah, when Isle of Armor ended and then Crown Tundra came about, Primarina just fell off because Tapu Fini was better and did its job much better too. Obviously, you can't burn it, or you can't burn things with it, but you get what I'm saying. Overall, it was a pretty fun mon. Primarina was definitely a cool mon at the time. So yeah. Necrozma. So Necrozma, let's see, this thing was weird. It was pretty good on hyper offense teams at the time. I remember seeing it a couple times in some tour games. But yeah, this thing could be mix, or not mix. Well, I guess you could make it mix, but you could either make it physical or special. And I think the Meteor Beam set was what made this mon very popular. There were also some stored power sets as well at one point in the meta. But yeah. And also with it being Prism Armor, or with this ability in Prism Armor, it could actually take, like Dark and Ghost type moves a little bit better than normal. Granted, it would still have to, play around said Ghost and Dark types, but it could at least, sponge the hit a little bit better than most mons. So there's that to mention. But yeah. Overall, it wasn't too bad. I think the Meteor Beam set was really what set that mon apart from, or really what made that mon, capable of being a offensive threat. So that's pretty much. I cannot lock this thing in. It can't lock for me. But yeah, that pretty much covers for Necrozma. Again, it wasn't bad. It's pretty solid mon. But I think once Isle of Armor ended, better mons came out, and Necrozma just fell off. It's pretty much simple as it gets. Crocodile. Crocodile. This one was an interesting one. Because there was one little strat that Crocodile could do because Urshifu was around. It had Anger Point, and you could actually catch its Wicked Blow, and you can get a +6 boost off that with Anger Point. So it was decent at that, but it was a very, very niche thing. Outside that though, I think you could run Scarf with it, and it was pretty decent at that. But outside that, like I said, it wasn't the greatest of mons, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible at it. But yeah, like offensively, it just had the choice scarf set, and like a rocking set as well, and the anger point. But overall, it didn't really do too much after Isle of Armor, for OU. Yeah, we got Porygon. So Porygon, this mon having teleport was one of the greatest things that could have happened to this thing. This mon having teleport means it could be annoying, and it could also be a very good team support mon. So this thing being able to port out and get momentum for its teammates is what kind of made this thing so good on Trick Room teams. So this thing getting a free port into Melm or getting a free port into Marowak is what makes this thing so damn good on Trick Room. So when it dropped in Isle of Armor for Trick Room teams at that time, I know Magearna was around at that time. So Magearna was just popping up. And Melm got banned right before Isle of Armor came out. So when it came to Trick Room, it was Porygon Z, or it was Porygon 2, Magearna, Marowak, what else? There's some other things. I think Hat still. I think Hat was still around. Yeah, Hat. There's some other things that were around at that time too. Let me think. What was another good sweeper on Trick Room at that time? Oh yeah, Crawdon. Crawdon was another one. So Crawdon was around too. Yeah, Crawdon. And what else? What else am I missing? I think Rhyperior was on there at one point, but I might be wrong about Rhyperior. Well, those are the ones I remember. I remember those guys for the most part. But Magearna was a pretty big one though at the time. So that mon got a lot out of that paired with Porygon too. Yeah, it was a very solid Trick Room mon. And then when Isle of Armor came out, it just became even better when you had Melm into the picture. So with Melm being back and Crest being back as well, you have that Trick Room core that can just really do a lot of damage for teams and just kind of break mons in half. So it was good on that. Then we have PZ. So PZ didn't really change in terms of its move pool for real. Like, it was just solid on one type of rain team. I forgot who made it. I think his name was Pinkacross. I think Pinkacross was the guy that made that one rain team with Porygon Z. But you basically just have it as a trick setter. So you trick a Choice Specs with something, and then after you trick them, you nasty plot up, and then you just start bodying everything. So that's essentially what Porygon Z did, and it was pretty solid on it with rain. So yeah, not much else to really say about PZ. Just pretty much do what it did. We got Zam. Okay, Zam, I think got robbed this generation. I think I got robbed. Like, its stats aren't bad. The mon is not bad offensively. It's just that there are better things around. It's as simple as that. It's just that there's better things around. And honestly, it's a lot harder to run, Nasty Plot plus Life Orb stuff, because how are you going to get that life? How are you going to really get that setup going? So it's really, really tough for Zam to get anywhere with it. But at the time, during Isle of Armor, when the mon dropped, it did have a little bit of a niche with it paired with Indeedee, since you can run Expanding Force with it and being Life Orb. So it wasn't bad as a breaker. It was a pretty strong breaker, actually, looking back at it. But again, it didn't really last that long once Isle of Armor came out. So the mon just kind of fell off after that point. But again, it wasn't a bad breaker. It was a pretty solid one. Honestly, I think Isle of Armor was the perfect time for this thing to actually get momentum, or actually get, like, attention. But again, there were better mods around at the time. And also again, like, Rain and stuff was around still. Rillaboom. It was tough, man. It was tough for Zam. Zam had a lot to do. And again, I don't blame it. But yeah, it had a lot to do. So it couldn't really cover for everything. And it was just tough. It really was just tough. And again, it was tough to really find a situation for Zam to really set up and nasty plot on things. So yeah, Zam was just an unfortunate case of power creep in this generation. Again, wasn't bad, but it just was not good enough. But yeah, I don't think I would do anything to change Zam. It's just another unfortunate case of where power creep just kind of shuts down offensive mons like these. So yeah. Now Scissor had an interesting time in OU. In the early parts of the Isle of Armor metagame, this thing was running, some defensive sets. Again, like SD, or running like some bulky defog stuff, and again SD sets. That's pretty much what this thing ran. It did run it with boots as well, and also for a time, this mon was meant to be a Kirim check, because Kirim was very hard to check during the Isle of Armor metagame and in the early parts of the Crown Tundra metagame. That mon was incredibly difficult to check. So a lot of players opted to use Scissor as a check to it. Now, I was not an advocate for that. I was just like, I'm going to hit that bitch really hard, and it's going to really hurt it. So that's what I was thinking whenever I saw people make that kind of debate about defensive Scissor or versus offensive Scissor. I was more of the guy that liked offensive Scissor more than defensive Scissor. But again, that's just my take on it. The Mon kind of fell off after Kirim dropped, so yeah, that's why it's in UU now. But it was good for its time. It was good for the time though. Again, I didn't really consider it as a great Ice Beam check, because honestly, thinking about ice types in general, especially Kirim, with it being, because Kirim was Specs a lot of the time, so Specs Ice Beam just it was too much. It was too much. It was too much for teams. Teams cannot handle that. So Scissor was like the mid ground for it, and even still, it was too much. So that's why that mon. That's why that mon was just so overpowering at the time. Again, not really a lot of defensive checks to cure him. So yeah, once that mon got freeze dry, like it was just tough to cover for that mon in general. So yeah, again, overall, Scissor wasn't a bad mon. It was pretty decent for what it did. But again, it was mainly a defensive check. Offensively though, it was good though, in its own right. But yeah, then we got Mew. So Mew got a lot of stuff in this generation. Mew could do a DD set. It could run an SD set as well. But DD was interesting because you could actually use fire, psychic, and ground coverage. Or you could do fire. It was a lot of different stuff it could do. But one of the big buffs it got was Flare Blitz. It having Flare Blitz means it could be a more offensive threat, and also you could technically use it as a suicide lead as well, since you don't have to boom on things. And plus, you could cover for the Ghost type too, so at least you would get chip on it and then be able to still kill yourself as well, and open up for the rest of your team too. But yeah, you can run that on a utility set with dual hazards, since Mew did get spikes in this generation too. Yeah, but another set that made Mew really, really stupid was the Imprison set. Imprison, and also the Store Power Body Press set. But I think that's also part of the Imprison set. But basically, the Imprison set allowed it to lock itself into something, or lock the mon into something, and then you would just set up with the Mew. Or then you would just set up with whatever you had. So it was very, very disgusting. It's a very disgusting set. But again, the Body Pressing Calm Mind set, or Store Power set, was like one of the better sets that Mew had. So it just basically bodied everything. It bodied dark types, and it bodied everything else with Store Power. So yeah, it was very good. It was a very, very good setter or sweeper with that set. And again, good offensively or good for utility wise on offensive teams. Then we got Moltres. Moltres was a pretty fun mon at the time. This thing was a Rillaboom boom check at one point during the Crown Tundra metagame, so it was around for a good while. It did get some new tools in Scorching Sands. So with it being able to hit Heatran, it gave it a little bit of a niche at the time, and it was OU for a good while actually. So it wasn't too bad. It was not bad. It was a pretty decent mon for its time. Again, you can run 3 attack with it, so you would have Flamethrower, Hurricane, and Scorching Sands plus Ruse. Or you could go a 3 attack set with Hurricane, Flamethrower, Roost, Defog. Or you can run U-Turn on it as well to get momentum. But overall, it wasn't bad. It was a pretty solid mon for its time. Again, Hurricane covered everything, Flamethrower covered everything, and Scorching Sands hit Heatran, and that was pretty much all you needed to do. So again, it was fun, very solid mon, loved that thing, and it was one of my favorite mons to build at the time, during the early parts of the Crown Tundra metagame. We got Dracozolt. So Drakeman was definitely an honorable mention. This thing suffered a curse. The fact that its brother was just much better than it. That's pretty much that. Like, the fact his brother was just much better than it, offensively. And plus, like, you know, Dracozolt, when it, like, actually, no, it had to run, before it got Slush Rush, it did run Hustle, and, you know, missing that Hustle did suck sometimes, but when it landed, though, it was doing work, I'll say that. But yeah, when it got Slush Rush, or when it got Sand Rush, it became a little bit better. I'd probably say that, well, actually, now I could probably say that Dracozolt was the better Sand Rush user than Drill, which is incredible to say, but that it's actually a fact. It's better than Drill. It's better than Drill, so, you actually can cover for things a lot better with this mon. And it does resist Rillaboom a little bit better, too. But yeah, Life Orb with this thing being mixed was pretty good. So you had Fire Blast to cover for Melm, and also cover for Ferrothorn as well. Bolt Beak was free a lot of the time. But you also had to run Draco to hit, I mean, you needed Draco to hit Lando, or even Garchomp as well. You needed to hit those two, because without those two, you get walled by the ground types. So, and by the steel types as well. So Fire Blast was like a need, was like a must need on Dracozolt. Like, you needed that. Fire Fang also countered as well, but it just was a little too weak. So that's why Fire Blast was a little bit more common, or was a little bit better, in terms of like getting the damage on Ferrothorn and all those mons, and also again getting damage on Lando too. But yeah, if you landed Draco on it, then you could potentially just two-shot it at that point. Well, not like two-shot it like it's an actual two-shot, because it's technically not. It's like doing like, what, 60% at most? 60 to 78% at most. So it doesn't really two-shot it. So, so there's that. But yeah, solid mon. Life Orb, again, Life Orb was pretty much its best set. You could run, I think there was another set it had. But I think Life Orb was pretty much all it needed. So yeah. Obviously, there were ways to kill it off in priority options like Weavile and whatnot, but yeah. We got Pert. So Pert, I forgot to add one more mon. I thought I actually put it in here, but I guess I never did. Or maybe I did, but I cut it out. No, I never added that mon. Let me add that mon real quick, because that's another important mon that really shaped NU. Or really shaped OU, my bad, not NU. Let me get that mon real quick, because that mon was fire as fuck. Let me get him real quick. The King. The King was, oh my goodness. You guys are going to love when I talk about the King. Anyways, Pert. So Pert had a major come up in this generation. This mon having Flip Turn was the greatest move this thing could have ever gotten in this generation. You want to know why Flip Turn's so good? It's because you get momentum. Now, imagine having a fat wall that can pivot out whenever you want it to. That's what Pert is, man. Like, Pert having Flip Turn is one of the greatest things this thing could have gotten. It gave it so much utility to the point where it stayed OU for a good chunk of the Crown Tundra metagame. It was very good, and it was a really good. And I mean, you can make a really good core with Pert plus Heatran, so it was not bad at all. Like a nice little fire grass core, like adding, you know, like a fire water grass core, like even adding Rillaboom to the mix as well. As being a pivot and whatnot. Or even adding Ferrothorn or Cart. So, yeah, like, you got a lot out of Pert with the pivoting set. So you could pivot with it, you could run Toxic as well, Rocks, Earthquake, and it was good to go. And all you needed was Spadef too, so you could take on the other special attackers as well. Now you didn't really take them on like super well, but you could at least take a couple hits a little bit better than most. So it wasn't bad. It was very good at what it did, and that's pretty much all it did. This being a pivot. Now, there were some occasional bulk up sets, because it did get bulk up in this generation. But that's pretty much all it really did, just being a pivot. But it was good. It was solid. Then we had Nidoking. So this mon right here. This mon, bro. This was the first time Nidoking ever got to OU. and it stayed for a good chunk too. This mon was something else, man. Let me tell you something about Nidoking. Nidoking, I think, had one of the greatest come-ups in this generation, with it just oppressing everything. Again, Lando was slow as shit this generation, so Ice Beam bodied it. Garchomp, kind of the same thing as well. You didn't really see a whole lot of max speed Garchomp, so Nidoking bodied that thing as well. It just hit everything. It hit every switch in, which was crazy. It was insane. And even had like superpower to cover for Blissey too. But yeah, this mon's coverage, or this mon's like just offensive presence, was so much for OU at the time. Like it was so good. I mean, it still is good. It still is good. Don't get me wrong. It's still good. But it's just that, you know, in this debut, when it came back in Crown Tundra, this mon was already smacking bodies, like, just left and right. This thing was insane, man. Life Orb was good on this thing. I mean, like, Sheer Force Nidoking was just going crazy in the meta. I loved it. I loved it for what it did. Just knocking out everything and just, you know, being a good electric immunity to a lot of stuff as well. Again, covering for Zera, covering for Zapdos. Zapdos is a little bit of an iffy one just because of Hurricane and stuff, but still, Nidoking put a lot of pressure on those mons. So it was very solid for its time. And I definitely got to say that Nidoking won this generation. It definitely did. And I can't wait to see what it can do if it comes back in Gen 9. But if it doesn't come back in Gen 9, well, I mean, that's going to be disappointing. But also, like, it definitely got a lot out of this generation. So I'm going to miss it. Going to miss Nidoking. But, man, that mon was a Dawn. That mon was a fucking Dawn. So I think that covers all the honorable mentions. And yeah, I've talked for a very long time, and this video has definitely gone over 2 hours. So hope you guys enjoyed this movie. I hope you guys enjoyed this movie of me just talking about all these mods. But yeah. So the things that I got out of Gen 8, I really enjoyed playing the other tiers besides OU. Like, Gen 8 made me want to play other tiers. Or Gen 8 OU made me want to play other tiers. That's the one thing I gotta mention. It made me want to play other tiers because I was bored as shit with this metagame. But it did give me a better perspective on other tiers. So I really enjoyed playing Gen 8 or Gen 8 NU from the beginning all the way to the end. It was so much fun, and I learned a lot from playing from playing that tier. Ubers as well. Like, I never thought I would get top 100 in Ubers ever. But the fact that I actually made it there at one point was just so fun. It was just so fulfilling to me. Like, I loved playing Ubers. This generation's Ubers was just so creative. Like, you could do so much with it. It was just so much fun. So I loved it. It was very, very fun. And I still had teams I wanted to try out, but I never had the chance to try out now. But maybe in the future, if I do old gens again with Gen 8, I'll probably end up playing more Ubers, or I'll probably just end up playing like the other tiers in OU. Like, that's probably what's gonna happen at some point in the future. But I'm gonna try my best to try and play for some Uber like Uber tours and NU tours again. RU was another one I was like kind of in and out on, but it was fun for the time. Like, I enjoyed playing it for those times I played it in. But I never really like stuck to it. I think one tier I should have played more. I should have played UU. But the only time I played UU was when Aegislash and T-Char dropped. When those two dropped, that was the last time I played UU. But I definitely should have played it because the meta did look fun. Granted, there's some fat shit like Celesteela and Slowking down there, and also Amoonguss down there, and, you know, Renicklas and all that stuff. But the meta did look fun. It looked like it was gonna be fun to play. So I regret not playing that meta. But there's that. And then the last meta that I enjoyed a lot was Little Cup. Little Cup was very fun. I really enjoyed my time playing that meta. And, you know, just learning about the different babies and, you know, just messing around with them and whatnot. And they were good. It was a fun time. Again, I learned a lot from this generation. Yeah, it sucked a lot. And it made me want to play old tiers or play old gens. That's another thing I gotta appreciate about Gen 8. Like, it made me want to play the old gens. So, you know, playing through Gen 1 and playing all the way from Gen 1 back to Gen 7 was fun. I enjoyed that time. It's very fun. I'm still gonna keep playing old tiers or old gens. Don't get it twisted. I have not fallen off that. I still play them. They're still very fun. Um, but yeah. So that pretty much covers Gen 8. This was it was a memorable generation, especially in a time right now where, like I mean, this generation came out in such a weird time, because like 3 years went by so quickly. Like this game dropped in 2019, and now it's ending this year. Like it's crazy to me how much of a time span that was. It never felt like 3 years to me. It never did. Like, but it happened. It happened. It is what it is, and it was what it was. But yeah, I'm gonna miss this generation a little bit. But I'm definitely looking forward to Gen 9 and what Gen 9 has to offer. So I'm done with my movie. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, the Bushido Gang, and subscribe for some more content on the channel. Let me know what was your favorite part of Gen 8 in the comments below. I already had a comment in the first part that said that they like Dynamax. So again, just let me know what you guys did like about Gen 8, and I'd appreciate your thoughts and opinions on it and whatnot. But and also mention any other honorable mentions or any other mons you found interesting and fun to use throughout the Sword and Shield metagame, or all the metagames, I mean. So again, from post Dynamax, or even from the Dynamax metagame all the way up to the end. So and also mention any other losers of Sword and Shield that you guys know of, because again, these were the 4 that I specifically thought of, because I just knew they were just ass. I really think Gengar is still just an unfortunate case. I think this mon could have done something. I genuinely do. Like, on paper, this mon has potential, but again, it's really, really tough to consider this thing when there's better mons or better ghost types in general. But yeah, it's such a sad case, but it is what it is. Hope y'all enjoyed. Be safe, wash your hands, and next time we're gonna be doing some Scarlet and Violet stuff. So that's gonna be that. Peace out. Shit. What ended it? Right.